Chapter 445. Yu family. Grandpa Yu was overjoyed and strode forward to lead the way. However, this journey seemed to be a little far. By the time they arrived at his place, they had been walking for nearly 2 hours. Grandpa Yu looked a little embarrassed. He was used to walking, so he did not realize that there were 2 delicate young ladies following behind him. He had completely forgotten that Yundong had also fled all the way here. Her stamina was not inferior to his. The Yu family's courtyard was actually very remote. It could be considered a slum in the prefectural city. The surroundings were filled with indecent people, and the road was filled with potholes. One could feel all kinds of smells when they walked into the alley. The people here were dressed in shabby clothes. When they saw Yundong, who looked like a young lady from a wealthy family, everyone glanced at them. However, when they saw that it was the Yu family, some people with ill intentions could only sigh regretfully. After all, the 4 strong men of the Yu family had all fled here. They were used to seeing dead people and were not to be trifled with. Yundong and Tong Shuidao pretended not to see those gazes and entered the Yu family's courtyard without looking sideways. It was really a small courtyard. It was even smaller than Aunt Ku's house where she lived back then. There was only 1 room. Then there was the small kitchen, the outhouse, and a small courtyard. Just because it was small, the rent was cheap. Fortunately, there were only 4 men. It was fine to squeeze in the same room. In the past, the conditions were even worse when they escaped. Now, it was just a matter of adding 2 bed planks to the room. Grandpa Yu let them sit and poured water for them with 2 thick clay bowls. Then, he asked, Yundong, since you've settled down in the Xuanhe prefecture, why did you come to Wanqing prefecture this time? Yundong took a sip of water. Although he did not add anything, it was still very refreshing and sweet. Grandpa Yu, you know about my mother's condition. We found a doctor to treat her. The doctor said that he was lacking an herb. Someone said that Wanqing prefecture's Xin family had this herb, so I came over to see if they could part with it. When Grandpa Yu heard about the Xin family, he frowned. The Xin family is rich and powerful. They are not to be trifled with. They don't lack money. It's difficult to get them to give you medicine. It was difficult, but she had to try no matter how difficult it was. Grandpa Yu, do you know who has the highest status in the Xin family? Grandpa Yu thought for a moment. It should be that 2nd young master. I heard that 2nd young master married the daughter of the prefecture magistrate. That eldest young master is not in good health. He never goes out. When old master Xin goes out, he always brings that 2nd young master along. It seems that more than half of the Xin family's businesses are managed by 2nd young master. Yundong pursed his lips. How can I meet that 2nd young master? Grandpa Yu was shocked. That's hard to say. You want to meet 2nd young master Xin? Ask him for the herb. It was probably impossible to buy it. Yundong wanted to understand the 2nd young master first and see if she could find a breakthrough from him. As she was thinking, a voice suddenly came from outside. Father, I'm back. That person's voice was loud and clear, but he was very thin. When he entered, he was stunned when he saw the 2 girls in the house. He immediately walked out in embarrassment and patted the dust off his body before entering again. Father, this is Yundong. Don't you recognize her? Grandpa Yu asked happily. Yundong also stood up and greeted, Uncle Yu, long time no see. Uncle Yu widened his eyes and looked at Yundong in shock. This is Dajiang's daughter? Chapter 446, Uncle Yu's help. Yes. Grandpa Yu looked proud, as if Yundong was his granddaughter. Uncle Yu looked at Yundong a few times, but he could not associate her with the sloppy person whose gender was unknown. It had only been half a year. They were still dressed in shabby, thin, and weak clothes, but the girl from the Zhiyuan family looked like a young lady from a rich family. This disparity simply made people unable to be jealous. However, Uncle Yu was still very happy to see her. Grandpa Yu told him the process of meeting Yundong, and finally talked about the Xin residence. When he heard that Yundong wanted to see 2nd young master, Uncle Yu could not help but frown. I've seen 2nd young master once. Last time, Someone wanted to build a relationship with the Xin family and specially stopped Second Young Master. Second Young Master did not even give him the corner of his eye before that person was dragged away by his guards. If you want to see him, you may have to do what? Uncle Yu glanced at Yundong and coughed twice. He said in embarrassment, the Second Young Master of the Xin family is vulnerable to beautiful women. As soon as he finished speaking, he was slapped hard by Grandpa Yu. What are you talking about? Do you want Yundong to seduce that pervert? Father, I didn't mean that. That Second Young Master is a lustful man, but his wife isn't easy to get along with either. She's also the daughter of the prefecture magistrate. I'm just reminding the Jiyu girl not to appear in front of Second Young Master rashly, so that she can avoid trouble. The Jiyu girl was very good-looking now. If she went to look for Second Young Master directly, it would be no different from sending herself to his bed. Jiyu Yundong was stunned for a moment. She smiled and said, "Thank you for your kind intentions, Uncle Yu. I understand. I'll try my best to avoid Second Young Master. In that case, wouldn't it be even more difficult?" She frowned and thought for a moment before asking, "Is there any way to enter the Xin residence?" Enter the Xin residence? This time, Grandpa Yu and Uncle Yu fell silent. After a long time, Uncle Yu thought of the basket of things on the way to escape. He gritted his teeth and said, "If you want to enter the Xin manor, I have a way." "What is it?" Jiyu Yundong asked hurriedly. "I know a friend who delivers vegetables to the kitchen of the Xin residence. I'll tell him. You can follow him in tomorrow morning to take a look." Jiyu Yundong's eyes lit up. "Really?" "Yes, but you can't walk around. If something happens and my friend is implicated, he won't care about you. Instead, he'll claim that he doesn't know you." Jiyu Yundong knew this rule. She did not want to implicate others. Besides, that person was only bringing her in because Uncle Yu had used a favor. She immediately nodded solemnly. "I understand." Uncle Yu glanced at her again and turned to leave. He was going to talk to his friend. Jiyu Yundong and her maidservant had been staying at the Yu residence. Unfortunately, the sky was about to turn dark, but Jiyu Dajiang still hadn't returned. The Yu family's grandson had returned and was shocked to see Jiyu Yundong. Seeing that it was getting late, Jiyu Yundong left the Yu family with Tong Xuedao. Since she knew that Jiyu Dajiang would return, she could only calm down and wait for him. When they went out, Uncle Yu sent them off. There were a few hooligans in the alley. When they saw Uncle Yu, they immediately felt very regretful. They could only watch Jiyu Yundong and her maidservant leave with burning eyes. The next morning, Jiyu Yundong followed Uncle Yu's instructions and went to wait outside the Xin residence. She was wearing a rough hemp garment and tied her hair up. Her chest was flattened, and her eyebrows were even thickened. She looked like a small worker. Chapter 447, Our Yundong. Not long after, they saw a middle-aged man and a young man pushing a cart of vegetables over. Jiyu Yundong hurriedly went forward. After she introduced herself, the middle-aged man silently led her forward. However, he kept a sullen expression and did not look too happy. This did not matter. Jiyu Yundong just had to go in and take a look. Tong Xuedao waited in the alley beside them. She was worried. Even though Jiyu Yundong asked her to wait for Jiyu Dajiang at the Yu residence, she refused. The middle-aged man pushed the vegetables into the back door of the Xin residence. When he saw the butler, he immediately put on a smile and praised him. Jiyu Yundong did not comment on this. It was just for the sake of living. There was still a distance from the backyard to the kitchen. Although Jiyu Yundong's head was lowered, the corners of his eyes kept drifting around. The Xin manor was indeed as rich and powerful as the rumors said. Not to mention the maids and servants who came and went, even the corridor they saw along the way, be it the workmanship or the carving, was very exquisite. Coupled with the trays held by the maidservant who walked past her, there were either jade bowls or jade plates on them. It was simply extravagant. Compared to them, she was simply worlds apart. She was not even qualified to be looked at. Jiyu Yundong's heart ached. Suddenly, Jiyu Yundong's ears pricked up when he heard the low voices of two maids. "That person is really pitiful. He was tortured by second young madam and beaten up by second young master. Who asked him to recognize the wrong person? Sigh, poor thing. Cough, cough. The butler who was leading the way suddenly coughed heavily. The two maids were shocked and immediately shut their mouths. They lowered their heads and quickly walked away. Yundong lowered her head and pretended not to hear her. Not long after, the few of them walked into the kitchen. The butler was very arrogant. He ordered Yundong to move baskets of vegetables down. Put it here. Hey, be gentle. You're so clumsy. You can't even do a good job. Why are these vegetables so disheveled? They're all over the place. The chef will nag again later. Place these vegetables in order. Why are you casually placing this basket here? There are people coming and going. What if they trip? If they are holding something master wants in their hands and trip themselves over, you won't be able to compensate. Yundong was speechless. She endured it. However, no matter how much she wanted to endure it, she did not even have the chance to leave the kitchen. It was really annoying. However, the worker who came with the middle-aged man thought that she was here to snatch work from him. He had disliked her since they first met and now, he was even going against her. Yundong felt that it was a mistake to follow the delivery man. After unloading the last basket of vegetables, she asked the butler where the toilet was. Unexpectedly, the butler glanced at her from the corner of his eyes. What toilet? You want to use the toilet in the Xin residence. Aren't you done with your work? Bear with it until you get back. Yundong was speechless. She almost wanted to curse aloud. Just as she was wondering if she should find another excuse, she suddenly saw a middle-aged woman walk in valiantly. Yundong took a glance and saw that although this woman was very imposing, the clothes she was wearing did not match her at all. It was as if a country woman was wearing the clothes of a noblewoman. The woman glanced around the kitchen and said, "Where's our Yundong's bird's nest? Is it ready?" Chapter 448. Dajiang's voice. Yundong widened her eyes and looked at the woman in shock. She almost responded when someone called her name. Fortunately, she immediately realized that the woman was not referring to her. The old woman in the kitchen quickly brought over a pot of bird's nest and smiled brightly. "It's here. It was stewed early in the morning. Hurry up and send it to concubine Yundong was speechless. She almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Her surname was and her name was also Yundong. Not only did they have the same given name, but they also had the same surname. The woman snorted coldly. "Our Yundong is the person second young master loves the most now. All of you are snobs. You don't take her seriously at all. I just asked you to stew the bird's nest. You've been delaying for so long, and you want me to come over personally to get it. If there's a next time, I'll sell all of you." With that, she carried the bird's nest and walked away arrogantly. As soon as she disappeared, the few old women in the kitchen spat at her back. "You really think too highly of yourself. Your daughter is just a concubine, and you still think she's a proper master. How shameless. Just wait. Second young mistress is not free yet. When she's free, who knows how long concubine will be able to hold the position." Seeing how brazen they were and how they dared to complain in front of the delivery man, it was obvious that they did not take concubine and her mother seriously. The corners of Yundong's mouth twitched. Hearing concubine made her feel uncomfortable all over. The steward had just finished speaking to the middle-aged man and let them leave. It was too late for Yundong to find an opportunity to leave. She could only frown and leave the kitchen in defeat. However, she learned that the second young master of the Xin family had taken in a new concubine who was her namesake. Forget it, forget it. That's not important. They just had the same name. How could she not allow it? Second young master seemed to dote on this concubine quite a lot now. Perhaps she could start from her. Yundong thought as she followed the middle-aged man out of the back door of the Xin residence. As soon as he came out, the middle-aged man said to Yundong, "All right, I've done what brother you asked of me. I've returned the favor I owed him. That's all. You don't have to follow me anymore." Yundong nodded. "Thank you. No need." The middle-aged man asked the worker beside him to push the empty cart away. When the worker saw that Yundong was not fighting with him for the job, he immediately became happy. Before he left, he even gave her a smile. Yundong sighed and walked towards the alley. Tong Xuedao was still there. Unexpectedly, after taking a few steps, she suddenly saw a group of people gathered there, pointing and talking about something. Yundong frowned. Tong Xuedao had already seen her and hurried over. "Miss, you're out. How are you? Are you all right?" She looked Yundong up and down nervously. Tong Xuedao was also wearing men's clothes. After all, she had wanted to follow them in at the beginning. Unfortunately, her plan had failed before she could say it. Yundong shook her head and pointed at the crowd. "What happened there? I think someone was thrown out by the servants of the Xin family just now. It's said that he was beaten. It's quite serious." Yundong suddenly recalled what the two maids had said. He must have been beaten up by the second young master of the Xin family, right? She had no intention of meddling in other people's business. She brought Tong Xuedao and walked straight through the crowd. However, just as she passed by that person, a faint voice suddenly sounded in her ear. Yundong. Chapter 449, finally meeting Dajiang. Yundong's ears were sharp. When she heard these two words, her body stiffened. She suddenly turned her head to look at the person lying on the ground. With someone blocking her way, she immediately pulled that person away roughly. Then, she squatted down and brushed away the hair that covered half of that person's face. In the next moment, when she saw the true appearance of the man on the ground, her hands began to tremble violently. "Miss, what's wrong?" Tong Xuedao saw that something was wrong with her and hurriedly asked in a low voice. Yundong's throat was tight and she could not even make a sound. She suddenly grabbed her trembling right wrist and pressed it against the man's neck with great difficulty. She felt that the pulse under her fingers was still strong. Only then did she force herself to calm down. She struggled to help the man up. The onlookers quickly advised, "Little brother, this is someone thrown out by the Xin family. Don't be a busybody, lest you get into trouble." Yundong suddenly raised her head and glared fiercely at that person. Her throat rolled and she finally spat out a cold word. "Scram. You." That person tried to persuade her out of goodwill but was scolded instead. He was instantly annoyed, but when he saw Yundong's fierce and cold expression, he was a little terrified and left dejectedly with his head lowered. Yundong lowered her head again and said to Tong Xuedao, "Come, be careful. Carry him back to the inn first." "Oh, okay, miss." Tong Xuedao was strong. She hurriedly squatted down and carefully helped the man onto her back. She did not dare to use too much strength. She tried her best to bend over to make the unconscious person on her back feel more comfortable. After walking for a while, Tong Xuedao asked, "Miss, who is this?" Yundong's nerves were still tense. The corners of her mouth were tightly pursed, and bloodlust surged in her eyes. She took a long time to answer Tong Xuedao, but her voice was dry and hoarse. "He's my father." Tong Xuedao's eyes widened in shock. Yes, it's old master. Yes." Yundong never expected to see Dajiang under such circumstances. The man leaning on Tong Xuedao's back was extremely thin. His image was even worse than what Grandpa Yu had said about Dajiang. He had been thrown out by the Xin family and beaten up like this. Yundong's face was ashen, and she clenched her fists tightly. The three of them quickly arrived at the inn. The waiter still remembered Yundong's attire before she went out today. At that time, he found it strange, but this was the guest's privacy, so he did not ask further. However, he had a deep impression of it. Hence, when he saw her return with an unconscious person on her back, he quickly went up to her. "Miss, what's wrong? Please help me find a doctor." Yundong gave the waiter a piece of silver and helped Dajiang upstairs. The door opened and the two of them carefully placed the man on the bed. Perhaps because it affected his wound, Dajiang couldn't help but groan as he lay on the bed. His brows were furrowed. "Be gentle," Yundong said hurriedly. Seeing his uncomfortable expression, she felt helpless for the first time. She didn't know how to move her fingers to minimize Dajiang's pain. Fortunately, the waiter immediately brought the doctor over. This was the doctor from the nearest medical center. His medical skills were quite brilliant. The moment he entered, he saw Dajiang covered in blood. He frowned and instructed Yundong, "Go get a basin of hot water first." Chapter 450. The scarred Dajiang Tong Xuedao quickly turned around to get hot water. Only then did Dr. Yu carefully check the wounds on Dajiang's body. His clothes had been removed by the scissors, so Yundong could not look at him anymore. She took a deep breath and turned around. The waiter stayed to help. As he followed the doctor's instructions, he whispered, "Oh my God, why is he like this? It's so bloody. Will he be unable to move his lower body in the future? Oh my God, why is there such a big wound on his shoulder? Is it because he was scalded? It's all blistered. No, who did this? This is too inhumane. Did his finger break from someone stepping on it?" Yundong's back was facing the bed. The more she listened, the uglier her expression became. The veins on the back of her hand throbbed, and her eyes were cold. Dr. Yu could not help but reprimand him. "Shut up. What are you shouting for? Give me the scissors." The waiter didn't dare to speak. He didn't know who the person on the bed was, but it didn't seem to have much to do with that girl, right? After all, this person was thin and had a rough face. He looked like one of those laborious. There was no telling who this guy had offended, but he was probably saved by Miss Jiyu out of kindness. Tong Xuedao brought hot water over. Seeing that Miss' expression was not right, she quickly helped her sit down and said softly, "Miss, don't worry. Old master will be fine." Yundong closed his eyes slightly. "I know." Faint movements came from behind. The waiter stopped making a fuss and only asked some questions occasionally. But these words still reached Yundong's ears, and her fingers tightened. After a long time, he heard Dr. Yu's voice. "Miss." He had heard the waiter call her Miss. "This patient's injuries are a little serious. I'll treat him for the time being, but the medicine to be used later is probably not cheap. You, here." Yundong took out a banknote. "Give him the best medicine to minimize his pain. Don't leave any future troubles. If you need anything, just tell me." Sure." Seeing that she did not look very well dressed, Dr. Yu was a little worried before. When he saw that she had taken out 100 taels of silver, he hurriedly agreed. The waiter could not help but widen his eyes. Wasn't this someone she had casually saved on the way? Wasn't this too generous? The doctor had already walked to the table. He took a brush and paper and wrote down the prescription. Then, he handed it to the waiter. "Please make a trip to our family's medical center to get these medicine." The waiter quickly took it and agreed happily. He was smart and knew that this girl seemed to value the man on the bed. If he helped her run more errands, he would definitely be rewarded. After the waiter left, Dr. Yu washed his hands and walked to her side to tell her about Dajiang's condition. There are 3 most serious injuries on the patient's body. One of them is a burn on his shoulder. It should have been scalded by boiling water. This is fine. I've squeezed out the mucus in the bubble. I'll apply the ointment later and it'll be fine when new skin grows in the future. Yundong exhaled slowly and nodded slightly. The second was when he was hit by a heavy object on the fingers of his left hand. 2 of the bones in his fingers were broken. As soon as Dr. Yu finished speaking, Tong Xuedao covered her mouth and gasped. Dr. Yu looked up at her and continued to say to Yundong, who had a tense expression, "I'll use a splint to fixate the fingers. He has to recuperate slowly. It's best not to carry heavy objects in the future." Chapter 451. Missed something. The third injury is the injury on his back. Dr. Yu sighed. This is the most serious. The person who hit him is not skilled. His external injuries are serious, and his internal injuries are not easy either. Internal injuries? Yundong immediately thought of the bottle of internal injuries medicine that Xiao Qingyuan had given her. She quickly searched her sleeve and actually took out the small porcelain bottle from her space. She said to Dr. Yu, "This is medicine for internal injuries. Take a look and see if it will conflict with the medicine you prescribed." Dr. Yu was stunned for a moment. He poured out a pill and sniffed it. Then, he scratched it with his nail and tasted a bit. After a while, his eyes lit up and he hurriedly nodded. It's useful. I'll feed him one now. He took the medicine and quickly crushed it. He mixed it with water and fed it to Dajiang. Seeing that he had consciously swallowed it, the doctor heaved a sigh of relief and came back to say, "You also need to pay more attention to his external injuries. This wound is prone to festering pus, and it may cause a fever. That's very dangerous." Yundong knew that if the wound was not treated properly, it was easy to get inflammation and infection, especially in this weather. One could get a fever if they were not careful. In this era, it was very easy to lose one's life if one had a fever. Dr. Yu told her all the things she needed to pay attention to. At this moment, the waiter returned with the medicine. He first took the ointment and applied it on Dajiang before getting the waiter to go to the kitchen to boil the herbs. By the time he was done, several hours had passed. Dr. Yu helped Dajiang put on his clothes before getting up to wipe his sweat. He said, "It's up to him now. If there's anything wrong, get someone to look for me. If his condition improves, I'll come over tomorrow to change his medicine." "Thank you, Dr. Yu." Yundong sent him out gratefully. The waiter also went downstairs smartly. After a while, he brought the food over. "Miss, it's already late. You should eat lunch first. Put it down. It's been hard on you today. You should eat too." "It's not hard. I'll go out first. Miss, enjoy your meal. If you have any instructions, feel free to call me." He left the room and closed the door gently. "Miss, let's eat first," Tong Xuedao called her softly. It was rare for her to speak softly, because Miss seemed to be in a bad mood, and Master's condition was not optimistic. Yundong was not in the mood to eat. She let Tong Xuedao eat first, but she walked to the bed and sat there looking at the unconscious Dajiang. She suppressed the anger in her heart and slowly closed her eyes. After a long time, she looked at the person on the bed again. Dajiang was very thin. He had originally been very thin, but he wasn't as haggard as he was now. He looked like he had aged a few years. She thought that she was different from Dajiang. In her heart, Dajiang was only someone who existed in her memories. If not for Madame Yang and the others, she would not have cared about his life at all. To her, Dajiang was just a familiar stranger. Later on, after spending time with her mother, Yunshu, and Yunke, Yundong's heart gradually warmed. Dajiang's presence in her memory was so strong. Therefore, in her memories, Dajiang's image gradually became three-dimensional in her mind. He became flesh and blood and she had feelings for him. Perhaps it was because she remembered that Dajiang was too capable that she felt that even if he was alone, he would still lead a good life. At least, it would be much better than her bringing up her mother and siblings. He might even have already started a big business. However, she had overlooked the most important point. Chapter 452, Dajiang Awakens. Dajiang valued relationships. He valued his family more than himself. In his heart, his wife was ignorant of the world. His eldest daughter was sentimental, and his youngest son and daughter were too young. How could such a family of four survive safely in the wilderness surrounded by jackals, tigers, and leopards? Of course, he had the ability to do something, but he couldn't wait. He was afraid that if he was a little slower, he might not be able to find his wife and children again. Perhaps in Dajiang's heart, he didn't dare to hope that his four family members were all alive. He could only think of finding as many as possible. He could not slow down. Therefore, as Grandpa Yu had said, other than the money for food, he had used all the money to find his wife and children. The corners of Yundong's mouth were straight. At this moment, she finally felt the deep love Dajiang gave her. "Miss, don't worry. Old Master will definitely be fine. Let's use the best medicine." Tong Xuedao had already finished eating. She turned around and saw that Miss was still sitting there motionless, as if she had suffered a huge blow. For a moment, she felt a little sad and guilty. If she had gone over to bring Old Master back to find a doctor the moment he was thrown out by the Shin family, would Old Master's injuries not have become so serious? It was all the Shin family's fault. They had gone too far. What right did they have to beat old master into such a state? Miss, eat something first. After you're full, you'll have the strength to take care of master when he wakes up, right? Yundong nodded slightly and reached out to touch Dajiang's forehead. Fortunately, he did not have a fever. Only then did she sit at the table and eat. Tong Xuedao diligently fetched hot water again. Seeing that Dajiang's face was covered in sweat, she carefully wiped it for him. As Yundong was eating, she suddenly thought of something. Xuedao, go to the Yu residence later. We agreed yesterday that we would go to the Yu residence when we came out of the Xin residence. It's already this hour. I'm afraid Grandpa you will be worried about us. Tong Xuedao also thought of this and suddenly slapped her head. I forgot too. Alright, I'll go over immediately. By the way, tell Grandpa you that my father has been found. After a pause, she added, don't say anything about him being injured. Understood, miss. After Tong Xuedao left, only Yundong and Dajiang were left in the room. She twisted the handkerchief again and wiped Dajiang's face. Unexpectedly, just as she approached, the person in front of her suddenly opened her eyes. Yundong was stunned. Dajiang was also stunned. He looked at Yundong with uncertainty. After a long while, he said hoarsely, Yundong? It's me. Dajiang smiled. Why are you wearing men's clothes today? Your eyebrows have become so thick. I almost didn't recognize you. Yundong pursed her lips and asked hesitantly, are you awake? Dajiang reached out his hand and realized that he was lying on his stomach. His body was in great pain. A sharp pain spread to his head, and cold sweat dripped down. Dajiang grunted and knocked his head against the soft pillow again before closing his eyes. Yundong panicked. She blurted out the name that she wanted to call him and yet had been stuck in her throat. Father, did you pull on your wound? Where does it hurt? Dajiang's eyes widened as he looked at her in shock. Yundong. Chapter 453, Father and Daughter Reunion. It's me, Dad. Dajiang gasped. I am not dreaming. As he spoke, he grabbed Yundong's hand with great force. He stared at Yundong, afraid that he would blink and the person in front of him would suddenly disappear again. Yundong slowly squatted down and let him hold her hand. He smiled and said, yes, you're not dreaming. Father, I'm in front of you. I'm fine. You found me. Dajiang's eyes widened as he listened to her seriously. His lips trembled slightly, and his hand that was holding her trembled slightly too. Slowly, this trembling became more and more intense, just like the torrential emotions in his heart. Yundong gently put her other hand on it and said gently, Father, do you hurt anywhere? You're injured. The doctor said that you can't move around. Dajiang finally blinked, but his voice was hoarse. Yundong, is it really you? Yeah. It's really you. It's me. It's true. It's actually true. Dad. Dajiang suddenly grinned. In the next moment, tears flowed out and slowly slid down his face to the pillow. Dad. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm just happy. I'm happy. His voice was choked with emotion. After searching for so long, he was almost in despair. When the planks of the Xin family hit him and he was thrown out on his last breath, the only regret in his heart was that he could not find his wife and children. He did not know if they were still alive or if they were waiting for him in heaven. He did not expect his daughter to be by his side the moment he woke up. He was satisfied. His wounds didn't hurt at all. He was glad. Had never been so glad. Yundong quickly wiped his tears with a handkerchief. The corners of her eyes could not help but tear up. Her eyes turned red. I'm happy too. Dajiang grinned like a child. But in the next moment, he suddenly raised his head slightly and looked behind Yundong. However, there was no one there. His hand could not help but tremble slightly. He wanted to speak, but he did not know how to. Yundong quickly knew who he was looking for. She smiled and said, Mother and Yunshu and Yunka are all fine. Dajiang was stunned. His gaze landed on her again. Yundong continued, back then, I saw that the Qingan prefecture was in chaos. I was afraid that I could not protect my mother and younger siblings, so I brought them to the Xuanhe prefecture. Now, they have settled down in Yongfu village under the Xuanhe prefecture. They are all at home, waiting for us to return. After a pause, she said, I'm sorry, father. I didn't fulfill my promise to you. No, you did the right thing. You did the right thing. Dajiang's voice became lighter. Knowing that his family was safe, he seemed to be in high spirits. There's nothing more important than your safety. I didn't think it through back then. I didn't expect the city gate of Qingan prefecture to be tightly shut, causing chaos. What about you? Yundong did not want him to continue blaming himself. She changed the topic and asked, why did father come to Wanqing prefecture? Actually, I went to Qingan prefecture to look for you. I even met Bao Chunhua and his wife. They said that they had seen you and saw you leave the city gate with their own eyes. Unfortunately, they didn't know where you went after you left. I even went. She paused and did not tell him that she had been to Zhiyu village. She would take it slow. So many things had happened in Zhiyu village. She had to tell her father, but she did not want to say it yet. Chapter 454, That Woman Should Die. Dajiang was stunned. He really didn't expect her to have been to Qingan prefecture. He pursed his lips and frowned. Back then, I thought that you would wait for me in Qingan prefecture, so I kept looking for you there. Later on, he lowered his voice. I bumped into your aunt later. Zhiyu Yundong was flabbergasted. Isn't she dead? Dead? Dajiang frowned. When did she die? She was still alive when I met her. Although he and Zhiyue were siblings, their relationship was really weak. It could even be said that they had become enemies. From his tone, it was obvious. I met my uncle. He said so. However, this was not important. What happened after you met my aunt? She said that you came to Wanqing prefecture. Actually, I didn't believe her at first. However, Dajiang later asked around. There were indeed a few people who told him that they had met such a family that had gone to Wanqing prefecture before the Qingan prefecture fell into chaos. That was why he came to Wanqing prefecture. Later on, he met the Yu family. He didn't expect the Yu family to receive Yundong's help. Even the Yu family said that they were coming this way. That was why Dajiang had been looking for them in Wanqing prefecture for more than half a year. Yundong sighed inwardly. It was really a freak combination of factors. They missed each other just like that. If she had gone to Wanqing prefecture back then, wouldn't they have met sooner? However, Zhiyue was the one who deserved to die. Others might have really seen them moving this way, but Zhiyue knew very well back then. She had even asked Fu Ming to bring Master Qian to chase after them and wanted to sell her nephew and niece. Anger rose in Yundong's heart. It would be best if Zhiyue was dead. If she was not, Yundong would kill her. She snorted coldly. Seeing the fatigue flash across Dajiang's face, she knew that she had said too much. She would talk about this slowly in the future. He was still injured and should be resting. She had neglected it. Father, you're still injured. It's more important to recover first. Now that we're reunited, there's plenty of time to talk in the future. I still have many things to tell you. Okay. He had found his wife and children, so he naturally had to live well. Recovering from his injuries was most important. He could not go back to see his wife and children like this. By the way, eat something first. I've been asking the waiter to prepare sweet porridge. Father, fill your stomach first. Then, drink the medicine prescribed by the doctor before you rest. As she spoke, she hurriedly opened the door and let the waiter bring the warm porridge over. Dajiang looked at Yundong's back and smiled. Yundong fed him small bites. It was not easy for him to finish it. After drinking the medicine, he really wanted to sleep. She reached out and adjusted Dajiang's pillow. His back was injured, so he could only lie on his stomach or sideways. He couldn't move too much, or it was easy to pull at his wound. Dajiang was really tired and his body hurt a lot. He actually couldn't bear to close his eyes. He wanted to see his daughter more. However, he really couldn't take it anymore. As soon as he closed his eyes, he quickly fell asleep. Tong Xuedao only returned when the sky was about to turn dark. When she heard that Dajiang had woken up, she immediately became happy. "Miss, go and rest. I'll guard master. You keep watch for the first half of the night. I'll do it for the second." "All right." Yundong went to the room next door to rest, but she did not sleep well. She was always worried that something would happen to Dajiang. Before midnight, she came over to replace Tong Xuedao. Fortunately, everything went smoothly. Dajiang didn't have a fever, and his injuries were recovering. Chapter 455, Yundong is really good looking after dawn. Dr. Yu came over again. After showing it to Dajiang, he heaved a sigh of relief. "I'll change his bandage first. Continue taking the medicine I prescribed yesterday." "Thank you, Dr. Yu." Dajiang was in a deep sleep, but he was still woken up by the pain of changing the bandage. When Dr. Yu saw him open his eyes, he smiled kindly. "How do you feel? Does it hurt anywhere? Do you feel choked or difficult to breathe?" Dajiang quickly realized his identity. "No, other than the pain in my wound, everything else is fine." With that, he hurriedly went to look for Yundong. When he saw that she was still there, he heaved a sigh of relief. Except, how did his daughter become so good-looking? She had washed off her thick eyebrows from yesterday and changed her clothes. These clothes looked expensive and her face was rosy. She was actually more beautiful than before. After Dr. Yu changed the bandage and gave some instructions, he left. Yundong walked to the edge of the bed and sat down. Seeing that Dajiang was staring at her, she could not help but find it strange. "Father, what are you looking at?" Dajiang paused and smiled. "Yundong is really good looking." Yundong immediately felt a little embarrassed. How can a father praise his daughter like that? Father is telling the truth. He looked very proud. Unfortunately, he was injured and couldn't even lift his head. At the thought of his injury, Yundong could not help but frown. "Father, why did the Xin family hit you so ruthlessly? They almost killed you." As she asked this question, Yundong's face was instantly filled with anger and a hint of killing intent. She didn't know how her father had offended the Xin family, but with her father's personality, he definitely wouldn't offend them to the point of getting himself killed. She wasn't going to let this go. Dajiang lowered his eyes slightly and thought of everything in the Xin residence. He slowly closed his eyes. After a while, he looked up and smiled. "It's nothing. Am I not fine? It's over. If father doesn't want to tell me, I'll go to the Xin family to ask myself." "Yundong." Yundong pursed her lips tightly and looked at him firmly. Dajiang smiled bitterly. "How did you become so stubborn?" "Father, go ahead." Dajiang sighed secretly and said in a low voice, 2 days ago, I heard that the second young master of the Xin family wants to take in a concubine. That concubine's surname is Zhiyu and her name is Yundong." Yundong's body suddenly froze. The words of the woman she had heard when she had disguised herself and sneaked into the kitchen of the Xin residence flashed across her mind. Yes, there was a concubine with the same name as hers in the Xin manor. Father thought, it was me? No wonder. No wonder he was unwilling to say it just now. Was he afraid that she would blame herself? Dajiang nodded. "I heard that concubine Zhiyu is from the countryside and fled here. She's 15 or 16 years old and is also good-looking. Moreover, she wasn't willing to be a concubine and was forcefully taken over by second young master. To get her, they even captured her mother and threatened her with her mother's life. All the signs indicated that this was most likely his daughter and wife." Dajiang panicked. It wasn't so easy for him to find out anything else. However, at this moment, his wife and daughter were forced to become concubines and had no way of asking for help. He could not sit still. Dajiang tried his best to sneak into the Xin residence. He was capable. It was not easy to enter the Xin family, but he found his way in. However, that was not the case at all. Chapter 456. Those 3 bastards. That person called Yundong was indeed unwilling at first, but her mother was not captured by the second young master. Her mother voluntarily helped the second young master trick her daughter into coming in. Moreover, concubine Zhiyu had only been in the Xin residence for a day, but she was already bewitched by the riches inside and willingly became the concubine of the second young master of the Xin residence. Dajiang did not find out about this at first. As a complete stranger, he anxiously asked around for Yundong's residence. After hiding in the Xin residence for a day, he was discovered. As it happened, it was the wife of the second young master of the Xin family, who was the daughter of the current prefecture magistrate of Wanqing Prefecture. When she saw Dajiang, she also received news that this person was getting close to concubine Zhiyu. Second young madam smiled. After sizing Dajiang up, she suspected his relationship with concubine Zhiyu. I heard that concubine Zhiyu has a father. You're so concerned about her. Could you be her father? Dajiang immediately denied it. Seeing this, second young madam became even more certain. Why are you nervous? Are you afraid that he'll use you to threaten concubine Zhiyu? Dajiang refused to admit it even more badly. However, regardless of whether second young madam was really certain or just in a bad mood, she said, if you admit your relationship with concubine Zhiyu, I'll let you go. If you don't admit it, you're a thief who barged into my Xin manor. When she said this, her eyes turned sharp. She directly said to the guard of the Xin family, break his fingers. This is the price for daring to break into the Xin residence. Dajiang didn't even have time to explain before his fingers were pressed to the ground. The guard knocked him over with a stick. He fell back in pain, but a maid behind him poured a hot teapot on him. In an instant, he was so hot that his entire body convulsed and his shoulders immediately blistered. However, his torture was not over yet. Someone had told concubine Zhiyu. Concubine Zhiyu brought second young master over and said that second young madam had deliberately found someone to impersonate her father to ruin her reputation. Only then did Dajiang realize that he had mistaken her for someone else. Concubine Zhiyu wasn't his daughter. Although her family had fled here, they had fled here when their ancestors were still alive. Second young master naturally could not reprimand second young madam. He was already in the wrong for taking a concubine. However, concubine Zhiyu was his new favorite and she was still new. He had to stand up for her, right? Hence, he pushed all the blame to Dajiang. He said that the man had pretended to be concubine Gus' father to enter the residence and swindle others, which was simply detestable. He got the guards to beat him up 20 times. Those people only threw him out when he was on the verge of death. Yundong trembled when she heard that. These bastards did not care about human lives at all. One was to vent her anger. One was to trample on others in order to fight for favor. One was trying to pacify his wife and please his concubine for the sake of having 2 women. That was why they could casually take her father's life. Yundong quickly lowered her head to prevent her father from seeing the fierceness in her eyes. I'm fine. Look, if not for this, I wouldn't have been able to see you, right? Dajiang comforted her. Yundong looked up and forced a smile. No, without this, she would have been able to see Dajiang safe and sound in the Yu family, not the father who was on the verge of death and was sweating from the pain. Yundong took a deep breath and suppressed her anger. At this moment, Tong Xuedao entered the house. She leaned close to Yundong's ear nervously and said, Miss, something seems to have happened. Chapter 457, Are they looking for us? Dajiang was stunned when he saw Tong Xuedao. And what did she call Yundong just now? Miss. He looked at the two of them in shock. Only then did Tong Xuedao realize that Dajiang had woken up. She hurriedly said respectfully, Master. Dajiang was speechless. Yundong asked Tong Xuedao, what happened? The latter suddenly reacted. She glanced at Dajiang and lowered her voice even more. Only Yundong could hear her. Young miss, I was at the entrance of the inn just now and saw the second young master of the Xin family coming over aggressively with 2 guards. Do you think he knows that we brought old master back and is here to settle the score? Yundong stood up. I'll go out and take a look. Take care of my father. Yes, my lady. Jiyu Yundong opened the door and saw a rich man's son entering the inn with 2 guards. He was walking upstairs. Why would the second young master of the Xin family be so free? He even intervened when someone they didn't care about had been saved, and even personally brought people to settle the score. Jiyu Yundong felt that it was unlikely. As expected, although the young master came up, he turned around and walked in another direction. Soon, the innermost room in the corridor was opened by a middle-aged man, who respectfully invited him in. As for the 2 guards at the back, they stopped at the door and stood outside dutifully. Before the middle-aged man closed the door, he said to the waiter outside, "Go make a pot of good tea." "Yes." The waiter immediately turned around and went downstairs. Jiyu Yundong narrowed her eyes and immediately turned to enter the room beside her. She found the coarse linen clothes she had worn yesterday and quickly changed. Then, she casually stuffed her hair into her hat. Her eyebrows were thick, and her face was dark. Finally, he changed his shoes and came out. Coincidentally, the waiter had just gone upstairs. Jiyu Yundong quickly took out a gun from her space. It was a toy gun. Because it was too vivid, Jiyu Yundong used it to scare people. After all, in the apocalypse, all kinds of demons and ghosts had appeared after losing their humanity. When they saw good-looking women, they felt that they were easy to bully. Jiyu Yundong had scared many people away with this toy gun. The bullet of this gun was round like a sugar ball. It would not hurt anyone, but it would definitely hurt the victim when shot from the muzzle. She aimed at the waiter's knee and fired 2 shots. The waiter bent his knees and almost threw the tray in his hand. Jiyu Yundong was responsive and quickly supported him with one hand and the tray with the other. She asked in a low voice, "Are you all right?" The waiter gasped and looked up. "Miss Jiyu, why are you dressed like this again? I have something to do outside. It's more convenient to dress like this." Jiyu Yundong helped her up and asked, "How are you?" "I don't know why, but my leg seemed to have been hit by something." The waiter turned his head and looked, but he didn't find any stones. "It hurts a little. I think you should sit over there and rest first." But, he glanced awkwardly at the tray in his hand. Jiyu Yundong smiled. "I'll send it to you." "Huh?" The waiter was surprised. "Aren't you going out?" "I don't have anything urgent to do. I'm just delivering tea. It'll be done soon." "Which room should I send it to?" As Jiyu Yundong spoke, she had already accepted the tray. Chapter 458, Secret Recording. The waiter subconsciously pointed to the innermost room. Jiyu Yundong nodded. "All right, I'll do it. You've been helping me run errands for the past 2 days. Take it as my thanks." Before anyone could react, she had already left with the tray. Only then did the waiter reach out and rub the bend of his leg. Then, he stood up straight and walked for a while. Hey, it didn't hurt anymore. He let out a sigh of relief and immediately thought about it. That's not right. He was so diligent in running errands for Miss Jiyu because he wanted a bonus. Could it be that Miss Jiyu was helping him deliver tea because she didn't want to pay him? The waiter cursed and wanted to change back. But when he walked over, he realized that it was too late. Jiyu Yundong had already knocked on the door and entered in a flash. There were only 2 people in the room. One was a young master. He was the second young master of the Xin family, Zhiyuan. Opposite him was a middle-aged man. No one knew who he was. The 2 of them stopped talking when they saw her enter. Zhiyuan even stood up and instructed the 2 guards to remind him to buy something when they returned. After Jiyu Yundong put down the teapot and poured a cup for each of them, the middle-aged man said, "All right, you can leave." "All right, please enjoy," Jiyu Yundong said in a rough voice and turned to leave. Unbeknownst to anyone, she had placed a recording pen in the compartment under the table and covered it with a tablecloth before leaving. The phone she used to scare Peng Zhongfei last time was almost out of battery. It was better not to take it out. Moreover, the phone was too big of a target and would be easily discovered. The recording pen was small, so it was easier to hide. Jiyu Yundong held the tray and left the room respectfully with her back arched. It was only when she walked out of the 2 guards' sight that she straightened her back. Unexpectedly, before she could go downstairs, she saw the waiter walking over anxiously. Miss Jiyu, actually, you don't have to help me. You're a guest of the inn. How can I tire you out? Besides, it's only right for me to run errands for you. You even rewarded me last time. Jiyu Yundong was so angry that she wanted to laugh. She threw the tray to him. All right, it's just a small matter. Look at how nervous you are. I won't tell your shopkeeper that you're lazy. The waiter wiped the sweat from his forehead and smiled awkwardly. Jiyu Yundong gave him a piece of silver. Let me ask you something else. The waiter's eyes suddenly lit up and he heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Miss Jiyu still needed him. It seemed that she was really kind just now. She was indeed a beautiful and kind girl. He immediately patted his chest and said, Miss, if you want to know anything, feel free to ask. I want to ask, where is the nearest fair brokerage? Miss, do you want to buy servants? Yes. This was not a problem. The waiter quickly told Jiyu Yundong about the two most reputable brokers in the vicinity. So you're dressed like this to buy someone from the brokerage. That's good. You don't look like you'll be easily scammed. If she dressed like a young lady from a rich family, those people in the brokerage would definitely treat her as an ignorant girl. Jiyu Yundong was speechless. She nodded affirmatively. Yes. As she spoke, someone called for the waiter. He quickly turned around and went downstairs. Only then did Jiyu Yundong shake her head and push open Jiyu Dajiang's room. Unexpectedly, the moment she entered, she saw Jiyu Dajiang and Tong Xuedao looking at each other in silence. Chapter 459. Fatherly love. Jiyu Yundong closed the door and asked curiously, "What's wrong?" Tong Xuedao shrank her neck and looked a little guilty. On the other hand, Jiyu Dajiang turned to look at his daughter and saw that she was wearing the same clothes as yesterday. Although he felt strange, he didn't ask further. However, he glanced at Tong Xuedao and said, "This. Miss Tong said that she's the maidservant you bought? Her entire family is servants of the Jiyu family." At this moment, Jiyu Dajiang still didn't know that there were 6 people in the Tong family. He thought that it was just her parents and her. Jiyu Yundong looked at Tong Xuedao, who laughed dryly. "I thought Miss had spoken to Master," so Jiyu Yundong could not help but laugh. She had thought that something was up. "Father, I have something to tell you too. I plan to buy 2 more servants to take care of you." She sat beside Jiyu Dajiang. Seeing that he was in good spirits, she couldn't help but smile. Jiyu Dajiang was stunned. He wanted to shake his head, but he realized that it was inconvenient. He hurriedly said, No need. Why would I need servants? Father, you're injured now. Someone has to take care of you." She and Tong Xuedao were both women, so it was inconvenient for them to wipe his body. Previously, she had asked the waiter to help, but he was already very busy. Yesterday, he had helped Dr. Yu for most of the day and was even scolded by the shopkeeper. If it weren't for the silver bonus, he probably wouldn't have treated her well today. Jiyu Dajiang also reacted. He did need help in this state. Previously, it was Dr. Yu who had brought him the chamber pot for him to relieve himself. Embarrassment flashed across his face. He agreed after all, but 1 is enough. I don't need 2. I'll be better soon. Don't waste money. Jiyu Yundong squatted down. Father, I'm doing a small business now. I have money. Although it's not much, it's enough to buy 2 servants. Yes, compared to the Xin residents, she was still very poor. However, Jiyu Dajiang had a serious expression. Just 1. It's not easy to do small business now. Save the silver as your dowry in the future. His daughter was already 15 years old. She would be of marriageable age soon. When the time came, it would be time to discuss marriage. In the past, when he was in the old Jiyu family, he was worried that his father and stepmother would cause trouble and that Yundong would not be able to find a good husband. Now that he had left the place and Yundong was so good, she would definitely be very happy in the future. Thinking of this, Jiyu Dajiang couldn't help but feel relieved. Seeing how insistent he was, Jiyu Yundong had no choice but to agree. Father, rest first. I'll be back soon. Be careful. When you look at people, don't judge them by their appearance. You have to see if they are honest. Those brokers are very smart. We won't buy any if the price is high. We can hire people too. Also, remember to buy just one. When Yundong went out, she could still hear his worried reminders. Her heart was warm and sour. This was the love of an old father. Even though he knew that she already started her own small business, even though he knew that she could bring his mother and siblings all the way to the Xuanhe prefecture, in his heart, she was still a child who had not grown up. No matter what she did, he would always be worried. Although Madame Yang was her mother, her situation was special. She looked more like her child. Now, in front of Dajiang, she was the daughter who needed his care, even though he was lying in bed and couldn't do anything. Yundong's smile widened. Looking at the sky outside, it seemed to be filled with joy from head to toe. Chapter 460, Xue Rong. When they arrived at the brokerage, Yundong looked for the broker that the waiter had introduced. Hearing that she only planned to buy one person, the broker was still smiling and her attitude was exceptionally enthusiastic. Miss, are you planning to buy a man or a woman? What's the age requirement? Is there any taboo? Yundong did not speak in a rough voice. It was too tiring. She had changed into men's clothes purely to deliver tea to the second young master of the Xin family. Now that she spoke, her voice was delicate and tender. The broker immediately recognized her gender. Yundong sat in the reception room and took a sip of tea before saying, I want a man. He must be agile, honest, and strong. There's no taboo. All right, wait a moment, miss. The broker smiled and went out. After a while, she brought a row of men in. This prefectural city was different from the county city. There were many people. Yundong raised her head and listened to the broker's introduction. This one used to be a stable driver. The previous owner thought that his driving was unsteady, so he sold him. This person is selling himself. He escaped from the Yongning prefecture previously and was arranged to live in a remote village when he settled down. He really can't survive. The broker described the experiences one by one, but Yundong was not satisfied with them all. She was looking for someone to take care of Dajiang's recuperation. Most men were careless, especially these people. Although they looked honest, they were also clumsy. Not only would they not do their job well, but they would also worsen her father's condition. Seeing that she was dissatisfied, the broker immediately waved her hand and let these people leave. Miss, what are you planning to do with the servant? To take care of a patient. After thinking for a while, Yundong added, it's best if they have such an experience or used to be an apprentice in the medical hall and pharmacy. Do you have any? The broker was stunned for a moment. She thought for a moment and said, there is one. This person's original young master's body was weak all year round. He had served the young master for a few years and is a meticulous person. However, that young master's condition worsened once and he was in danger. His mother said that these servants didn't serve him well and killed 2 of them. The rest were sold. Yundong raised his eyebrows. From the meaning of her words, the servants were innocent victims who took the blame. She nodded. Tell the man to come. I'll take a look. The broker quickly brought him over. He was a man in his early 20s and looked very thin and weak. There was no expression on his face. Yundong asked him a few questions, but he tried his best to make it clear with the least amount of words. Yundong was pleasantly surprised. Although this person was taciturn, he spoke clearly and was very organized. Moreover, he was very clear about the things to take note of when taking care of a patient. Although he was thin, he was quite strong. Then. The broker's face lit up. All right, then I'll prepare the contract for you now. She was actually relieved. This person was not easy to sell. It was mainly because everyone felt that it was very unlucky that the guy had served a patient who did not end well. He had been in the brokerage for a few months, but he had not been sold. The man was also a little surprised, but he quickly calmed down. Yundong waited until they left the brokerage before asking with interest, your name is Xue Rong, right? Who was your previous master? Xue Rong paused for a moment and answered simply, Xin family. Yundong stopped in her tracks. The Xin family? Was it the Xin family that she knew about? Chapter 461, Zhiyuan left, that's right. Yundong remembered that the eldest young master of the Xin family seemed to be in poor health all year round. So, Xue Rong had served the eldest young master of the Xin family? This was really beyond her expectations. No wonder Xue Rong looked like he had undergone professional training. His silence was probably a habit he had developed in the Xin residence. He seemed to be a cautious person. Xue Rong also raised his head slightly to look at his new master. He thought that if the other party knew that he was sold by the Xin family, she would ask him some questions or return him. But Yundong did not mention a word about the Xin family all the way to the inn. She only instructed him, "You have to take care of my father. He's injured, and the doctor said that he needs to recuperate for a period of time. Since you're experienced and know how to take care of others, you must know more about what to pay attention to than I do. Well, stay in the inn for the time being. You'll share a room with my father. As for the rest, you'll slowly understand in the future." "Yes, my lady." Yundong nodded and the two of them went upstairs. As she turned the corner, she glanced to the other side and saw that the two guards were still standing at the door. It seemed that they had not left. After entering the house, Tong Shuidao immediately looked over and whispered, "Miss, master is asleep." Yundong's actions instantly softened. He introduced Xue Rong to her before bringing him to the edge of the bed. "This is my father, Dajiang. I've told you about his injuries. If you have any questions, ask Shuidao." Xue Rong agreed. Yundong looked at Dajiang again before leaving. She had to keep an eye on Zhiyuan's door and see when he was leaving. She was going to retrieve the recording pen. Yundong went downstairs and asked the waiter for lunch. She ate slowly while waiting. There were a lot of people in the lobby. No one would notice her if she sat in the corner. About half an hour later, someone finally appeared at the staircase on the second floor. Yundong narrowed her eyes. As expected, she saw Zhiyuan coming down with two guards. Not only them, but the middle-aged man also came down. "Good. Now there's no one in the room." The middle-aged man instructed the waiter, "Clean up my room." "All right," the waiter replied. He instructed the other waiter to look after the customers downstairs and went to the second floor. Yundong immediately put down her chopsticks and strode after him. She went straight to the innermost room and saw that the waiter was about to bring out the teapot. He was stunned for a moment when he saw her. "Miss, why are you here?" "I was looking for you," Yundong said as she walked inside. The waiter subconsciously asked, "Why are you looking for me?" He did not bother to stop Yundong from entering. Yundong leaned against the table. While the waiter was distracted by the noise downstairs, he quickly reached under the table and put the recording pen into his space. Then, she said, "Didn't I buy someone? I've already brought him back. He's staying in my father's room now. I want to ask you for an extra quilt for him to use. Also, send a lunch up." "That's easy. I'll send it over in a while. I'm not in a hurry. You can give it to him when you're free." With that, Yundong left with a smile. She went straight into her room and locked the door before taking out the recording pen. She turned on the switch and listened to the contents quietly. Chapter 462, Abnormal Eldest Young Master. At first, there were some rustling sounds, but soon, the middle-aged man's voice sounded. "I heard that second young master has taken a concubine." "What? Uncle Wei even cares about this." "Second young master, you've misunderstood. Uncle Wei is just worried that the prefecture magistrate will be unhappy." "So what if he's unhappy? Do you think he'll stand up for his daughter and cause trouble for our Xin family?" Zhiyuan's mocking voice sounded. "My father-in-law is most concerned about fame and profit. Although the Xin family is his in-law, the interests of the two families are already closely linked. What he values is the Xin family. What's a daughter?" Uncle Wei sighed. "In the end, it's not good to go too far. After all, we've slapped his face. He values the interests of the Xin family, but the second young master isn't the only master of the Xin family. Although eldest young master's body is weak, would the prefecture magistrate like him? He's a man with a strange heart. He listened to my mother's nonsense and brought those boys and girls back, hoping to make himself better. Look at how many evil deeds he's done. His hands are stained with so much blood. He's much more disgusting than me. The prefecture magistrate must hate him. Otherwise, why would he marry his daughter to me? Yundong suddenly stood up and almost knocked over the stool behind her. She gripped the recording pen in her hand tightly. What did Zhiyuan just say? Boys and girls? Stained with blood? This eldest young master and that madam were actually not good people. These people from the Xin family were simply a nest of dirty rats. They stank all over, and the disgusting feeling emanating from their bones made Yundong especially uncomfortable. She took a deep, slow breath and had a sip of water before she continued to play. Uncle Wei's anxious voice came from inside. Second young master, be careful with your words. You can't spread these words around. Otherwise, not only will your brother's reputation be ruined, but the entire Xin family will also be criticized. At that time, the one who will suffer the greatest loss will still be second young master. All right, I won't say anything, okay? Zhiyuan seemed to be very impatient with Uncle Wei's teaching. However, the two of them seemed to have a good relationship. Uncle Wei should be a servant of the Xin family. Yundong had also seen with her own eyes how respectful he was to Zhiyuan. However, when they spoke now, there was a hint of intimacy and familiarity between the two of them. Zhiyuan at least treated him as half an elder. Yundong memorized Uncle Wei before continuing to listen. It was still Zhiyuan who spoke. That trivial matter in our family is not worth talking about. Did you have any good news when you came back this time? Uncle Wei sighed. Everyone in the capital has already arranged for it. Those people took the money but didn't do anything. They know that the late emperor has died. Our Xin family isn't as popular as before, so all of them are shirking it. So you didn't get the sugar deal? White sugar is a business of the imperial court. The emperor can give it to whoever he wants. If the late emperor was still around, the white sugar business of Wanqing Prefecture would definitely belong to the Xin family. However, the current emperor values the Duan family more. The Duan family's momentum has not decreased in the past 2 years. If our Xin family did not have a good relationship with the prefecture magistrate, we would probably be trampled under the feet of the Duan family. However, the officials of the Xin family who were on good terms with the capital in the past are not related to the white sugar business. Moreover, the production of white sugar is limited. Every prefectural city won't obtain much. Zhiyuan seemed to have stood up. Then should we give up on the sugar business? Not really. Actually, I also heard another piece of news this time. What? Chapter 463, targeting the Zhiyu family. It said that this method of making white sugar was developed by a farming family in the Xuanhe prefecture. Later on, they offered it to the imperial court. However, that farming family had always been making sugar and trading it. Therefore, the imperial court no longer found anyone to sell white sugar in the Xuanhe prefecture. A farmer. Zhiyuan's voice was instantly filled with excitement. Yundong suddenly frowned. Were they talking about her family? F***ck, she was actually targeted. Qin Wenjing, you big idiot, you have to stop them. Uncle Wei's voice sounded again. That's right. Unfortunately, we can't interfere with the Xuanhe prefecture. That prefecture magistrate Dai is not an ordinary person. Why can't we? It's not like we're going to take root in the Xin family and do business. Let's go to that farmer in secret and ask him to hand over the secret recipe for making sugar. We'll give him some benefits later. Won't everyone be happy? Uncle Wei said helplessly. So what if we obtain the secret recipe to make sugar? Do you dare to make it in private and sell it? Now, the business of white sugar is controlled by the imperial court. If the emperor finds out, the Xin family will not be in a good state. Zhiyuan snorted coldly. Then, there was a hint of ruthlessness in his voice. Who said that I would sell it in Wanqing Prefecture? Only the Duan family will take a fancy to a small prefectural city's business. Second young master, you mean, if Dajiang doesn't allow us to sell it, what about Liu country? What about Cheng country? They must be coveting this white sugar, right? Uncle Wei took a deep breath. Young master, do you know what you're talking about? The imperial court has white sugar. They can hold their heads high in front of other countries. If others want this white sugar, they have to beg the current emperor. If you do business with them, it won't be bad. The emperor will skin you alive. If we don't do business with them, are you really going to watch the Duan family step on our heads? Aye. But that won't do either. This isn't the time of the late emperor. Even if we have any connections with those two countries, we won't be discovered. The late emperor was muddle-headed. The current emperor is very shrewd. Zhiyuan was a little unwilling. It can be less, that won't do either. Second young master, you should give up on this idea as soon as possible, Uncle Wei said. He probably realized that his tone was too cold, so he softened his tone. Second young master, be more patient. Why don't you wait for a while and see what the emperor thinks? If he really agrees to the Duan family, it won't be too late for us to take action. Uncle Wei continued, as for the white sugar, we can do as second young master said and go to that farmer to get the secret recipe first. Leave this matter to me. You can wait for news in the residence. All right. Zhiyuan was still a little unwilling. Uncle Wei sighed and reiterated, don't contact those two countries. Wait for me to come back. I know. Zhiyuan was impatient. Then, Uncle Wei, when are you leaving? In a few days. I just returned to Wanqing Prefecture. I still have to tell your father about the situation. Then you can stay in the residence for the next few days. How can this compare to the residence? No need. It's convenient to stay here. I'm used to it. That was the end of the conversation. However, Yundong's expression was as dark as water. She had thought that the three scumbags from the Xin family had caused her father to become like this. It was enough for her to settle scores with them. Unexpectedly, they had their eyes on her white sugar. Trying to force them to hand over the secret recipe? Yundong sneered in your dream. Chapter 464, Writing a Letter Xin family. Yundong's fingers tapped lightly on the table, and she put the recording pen back into her spatial storage. She would definitely not let the Xin family off. After all, even if she did not mind, the Xin family would still force her to hand over the secret recipe of the white sugar. Thus, she might as well make the first move. It was just that Yundong was only a little farm girl in Yongfu village who had yet to reach adulthood. She only had more than 100 acres of land and a workshop. Compared to her, the Xin family was a colossus. Fortunately, the Xin family was courting death. Yundong sneered. She took out a brush, ink, paper, and inkstone and began to write a letter in detail. In the letter to Qin Wenjing, not only did she say that the Xin family and the Wanqing family were colluding, but she also said that many young masters of the Xin family were looking for boys and girls. Of course, the most important thing was that the Xin family had many connections with the other two countries. She didn't mention anything about Dajiang being beaten up. However, after thinking about it, she still had to talk about how the Xin family coveted her sugar and wanted to force her to hand over the secret recipe. After all, in Qin Wenzheng's heart, Yundong was not a busybody. Last time, she had warned him not to implicate her family in these dangers. How long had it been? Why would he take the initiative to write to him just because he knew about the messy situation in the Xin family? After writing this, she also analyzed the benefits that the imperial court would obtain after destroying the Xin family. The Xin family was currently dissatisfied with the fact that the imperial court valued the Duan family. They might secretly play tricks. Moreover, their family was rich. Didn't the imperial court lack money? This was delivered to the door. Coupled with getting rid of evil in name, it was killing two birds with one stone. When he was done, Yundong took it and blew on it to dry the handwriting. It was just that the delivery of this letter was troublesome. The relay station usually sent messages to the officials, and she did not have a messenger pigeon. The journey of the civilians to send messages was slow and unreliable. If such an important letter was lost, it would be fatal. Yundong thought for a long time and suddenly stopped tapping the table. She had an idea. After folding the letter in her hand, Jiyu Yundong stood up and was about to leave when she realized that it was getting dark outside. Jiyu Yundong frowned. Just then, there was a knock on the door, followed by Tong Shuidao's voice. "Miss. Come in." Tong Shuidao entered with a tray. "Miss, have dinner first." Jiyu Yundong rubbed her temples. Unknowingly, it was already so late. It seemed that she could only go out tomorrow. She placed the letter into her spatial storage. "How's my father? Master woke up once and found out that you were the one who hired Brother Xue to serve him. He even asked where you were. When he found out that Miss was busy, he didn't say anything. After taking the medicine, he fell asleep again." Tong Shuidao answered as she placed the food on the table. Jiyu Yundong nodded. "The medicine prescribed by Dr. Yu had the effect of calming the mind and helping him sleep. Jiyu Dajiang needed more rest now. Moreover, she had heard from Grandpa Yu that her father worked day and night to find them and had very little time to rest. Just the day before she met him, he had snuck into the Xin family and did not sleep for the entire night. Now, it was a good time for him to recuperate. After dinner, Jiyu Yundong went to Jiyu Dajiang's room to take a look before returning to rest. The next morning, she got up and prepared to go out with the letter she had written yesterday. Unexpectedly, as soon as she opened the door, she saw Xue Rong coming out from next door. Moreover, it seemed like he was going out. Chapter 465, Old Father's Heart. When he saw Jiyu Yundong, Xue Rong greeted her respectfully. Jiyu Yundong asked, "Where are you going so early in the morning?" Replying to young Miss, "Old Master instructed me to go to the Yu family and bring his clothes over." Jiyu Yundong waved his hand. "Don't go yet." As she spoke, she entered the house. Jiyu Dajiang had woken up and was lying on his side. His eyes were staring straight ahead, and no one knew what he was thinking. When he saw Jiyu Yundong, a trace of joy flashed across his face. "Yundong is here? Father." Jiyu Yundong sat on the edge of the bed. Seeing that he was in good spirits, she relaxed slightly. "Let Xue Rong take care of you here. I'll go to Grandpa Yu's house." "Sigh, let our Rong go." "Our Rong?" Jiyu Yundong raised his eyebrows and turned to look at Xue Rong. She wouldn't have known while this person was quiet. In just half a day, he made Tong Shuidao call him Brother Xue and her father called him our Rong. Xue Rong pursed his lips. He still looked the same, quiet and obedient. Jiyu Yundong smiled and turned to Jiyu Dajiang. "Father, I originally planned to go to Grandpa Yu's house. I happened to have something to ask him for help with. Besides, they took good care of you some time ago. Logically speaking, I should go over personally to thank them." "Yes, you should indeed thank them," Jiyu Dajiang agreed. Then, he frowned. "But you don't know that the people living near the Yu family are very messy. It's not safe for a girl like you to go over. How about this? Let a Rong accompany you. I'm already much better today. It's fine without him taking care of me." "Father, I can go alone." "No, I'm worried." "Why don't you let a Rong accompany you? Or let a Rong go on your behalf?" Jiyu Yundong choked. Along the way, she had always made her own decisions. But now, facing her father who cared about her, there were some things that she could not refuse. Sighing, Jiyu Yundong could only nod. "All right, I'll get Xue Rong to accompany me." Jiyu Dajiang revealed a smile. "It's a pity that father is injured. Otherwise, father would have accompanied you. I may not be back in a while." To ease her father, Jiyu Yundong could only bring Xue Rong along. Before leaving, he instructed Tong Shuidao to take care of her father. In a while, Dr. Yu would come over to change his bandage. If there was anything else he needed help with, he would call the waiter. Tong Shuidao was still a little resentful as she glared fiercely at Xue Rong. To think that she had called him Brother Xue yesterday. She did not expect him to fight for Miss Favor the moment he arrived. Miss did not even bring her along when she went out. Xue Rong was stunned for a moment, but he did not say anything and quickly followed. Jiyu Yundong specially went to buy some things before heading to the Yu residence. They drove the carriage there. The road was a little long, but the carriage stopped at the entrance of the alley. It was not easy to ride inside. It was still the same alley, and those sizing gazes. Jiyu Yundong did not care, but Xue Rong frowned slightly. He followed Yundong cautiously, glancing left and right from time to time. When he saw a few young men with sloppy gazes that revealed greed, Xue Rong's heart could not help but thump. Fortunately, not long after, they entered the Yu family. There were people in the Yu family, so the courtyard door was open. Yundong had just walked in, but before she could make a sound, an unfamiliar voice came from inside. "Old Yu, why don't you go out and find work these 2 days? I'm afraid that there won't be anyone at home when Dajiang comes back. I'll rest for 2 days. Anyway, I won't be able to find any work," Uncle Yu said with a smile. Unexpectedly, the other party sneered. "He probably won't come back, right?" Chapter 466, Grandpa Zhang next door. Grandpa Yu was unhappy. "What do you mean? Didn't you say that his daughter came looking for him? She's quite rich. The person who came the afternoon before yesterday was his daughter's maidservant, right? She even used a maidservant. Dajiang must have followed his daughter to enjoy life. How could he still remember his poor friend here? Don't talk nonsense." "How am I spouting nonsense? Otherwise, why didn't Dajiang come to see you after a few days? He might be enjoying himself now and have long forgotten about your family. You're the only one who's still waiting at home." Grandpa Yu's voice was filled with anger. "I know Dajiang better than you. He must have been delayed by something. Don't spout nonsense here. I'm busy. Go back to your house." "Hey, why are you, Grandpa Yu, are you home?" Yundong suddenly shouted. Grandpa Yu was stunned. He quickly put down the basket he was weaving and came out happily. "Yundong, you're here?" He looked behind her. Although he saw a man, it wasn't Dajiang. He was immediately puzzled. As Yundong walked inside, he explained, "My father didn't come. Actually, when I met him 2 days ago, he was seriously ill and has been recuperating in bed for the past 2 days. 2 days ago, Xue Dao came over. I specially asked her not to say anything, afraid that you would be worried." As she spoke, she had already seen the people in the room. It was a man who was slightly younger than Grandpa Yu. When he heard his words, he smiled awkwardly. Yundong did not look at him. She just asked Xue Rong to put the things he had bought on the table. "Grandpa Yu, this is food bought on the street. My father specially instructed me to buy it. He wanted to come too, but the doctor instructed him to rest more and come back after he recovers." When Grandpa Yu heard that Dajiang was sick, he became anxious and didn't even look at the things on the table. On the other hand, the other person in the room kept looking sideways. He even swallowed his saliva and wanted to know what was inside. "Why is your father sick? What illness is he suffering from?" "I'll go see him," Grandpa Yu asked nervously. He knew that Dajiang must have been delayed. Yundong smiled and helped him sit down. "I'm fine. Has already seen a doctor. He just caught a cold. It's not good for him to go out again. You shouldn't go. If he passes it to you, my father will feel uneasy." Grandpa Yu thought about it and agreed. "Your father is sick. Don't come over. It's more important to take care of your father. I must come and take a look." As Yundong spoke, she glanced at the table where the gift box was placed. Seeing that the stranger was getting closer and closer, she could not help but twitch her lips. She asked, "This is, Grandpa Yu seemed to have just remembered that there was another person at home." He immediately patted his head and said, "It's Grandpa Zhang next door." Grandpa Zhang forced a bright smile at Yundong. "You must be Dajiang's daughter. You're really good-looking, polite, and filial. I'm your Grandpa Zhang from the family on the left. Your father and I have known each other for a long time. He's been suffering and has been looking for you. This time, he's sick. You have to take good care of him. It's not easy for him. It's really not easy. Unfortunately, I don't have much ability to help him." He even wiped his eyes as he spoke, looking very sad. Yundong was speechless. Chapter 467, Box with a secret compartment. "You've got quite a lot of drama." Grandpa Yu could not stand it anymore. He waved his hand and chased him away. All right. This has nothing to do with you. Hurry up and go home." Your grandson will come looking for you later. Grandpa Zhang let out a sigh and refused to leave. I'm talking to him. Why don't you know any etiquette? How can you chase a guest out? Temph, I haven't forgotten what you said just now. Why don't I have a good talk with the Zhiyu family's girl? Grandpa Zhang immediately fell silent and snorted. Seriously, if you want to leave, so be it. You're too much. With that, she hurriedly left. Grandpa Yu closed the courtyard door and blocked the view outside. He then came back to greet Zhiyu Yundong. Come. Yundong, take a seat first. He poured 2 glasses of water for her. Why did you bring anything? These things are expensive. Grandpa Yu, I hope you don't mind, Zhiyu Yundong said politely. Then, he changed the topic and said in a low voice, actually, I came today to ask for your help with something. Tell me. As long as I can help, I'll definitely help. Grandpa Yu, do you know any carpenters? I want to ask someone to make me a small box with a secret compartment. Uncle Yu slapped his leg. I know him. There's a carpenter Tan in an alley over there. He's very skilled, but he doesn't have a good temper, so he doesn't take on many jobs. Grandpa Yu, can you bring me to meet him? Are you in a hurry? Zhiyu Yundong nodded. Yes, it's best if you can give it to me today. All right, I'll take you there. Grandpa Yu did not delay any longer. He brought Zhiyu Yundong out of the courtyard and went straight to the Tan family. Carpenter Tan was said to have a bad temper, but in fact, he was not very social. He spoke little and almost only answered questions. But Zhiyu Yundong had seen the things made in his courtyard. They were indeed sturdy and beautiful. Zhiyu Yundong explained the appearance to him. It was actually not complicated and was not big. It was just a small rectangular box that contained hairpins. The most important thing was the secret compartment. This had to be made solid. Carpenter Tan's movements were very fast and skilled. With a few swooshes, he sawed the wood and cut the connector. The hardest part was the secret compartment, which took some time. However, it took less than an hour. Zhiyu Yundong thought that it would take a day to do this, but she did not expect it to take so little time. Carpenter Tan polished the box twice in the end. It was very flat and smooth to the touch. He then waxed it again. By the time Zhiyu Yundong got it, it was still too early. She became happy and gave Carpenter Tan a tael of silver. Carpenter Tan was stunned when he saw this. It did not take much effort for him to buy such a small wooden box. He did not need so much at all. But Zhiyu Yundong had already left with the wooden box. When she left the Tan family, she said to the old man, Grandpa Yu, I still have something to do, so I'll leave first. I'll visit you again after my father recovers. Grandpa Yu could also tell that she seemed to be in a hurry. All right, I'll send you off. No need. Xue Rong is here. Take your time and go home first. Remember to eat the pastries I brought for you. Don't let them go bad. The weather is hot now. As soon as he finished speaking, he left with large strides with Xue Rong before he could speak. With the box, she could deliver the letter. Unfortunately, there were always obstacles blocking her path to success. Zhiyu Yundong sighed inwardly as she looked at the 4 people who had stopped him. Chapter 468, Eldest Miss is so powerful. Xue Rong's expression suddenly tensed up. He did not know martial arts, and his body was even a little thin. There were 4 of them. He could only hold back 2 at most. If he had known earlier, he would not have kept quiet but let Grandpa Yu send them off. The 4 of them had already surrounded them. Miss, don't be afraid. We just want money. Look at how hard our lives are. Give us some money and buy peace. Isn't it good for everyone to live in harmony? Xue Rong was already prepared for battle. He whispered to Zhiyu Yundong without looking back, Miss, I'll hold them back later. Run quickly. This side is close to the Yu family. Run towards the Yu family. Zhiyu Yundong held his forehead and laughed. She patted Xue Rong's shoulder and looked at the 4 of them. I have something urgent to attend to. It's better if you don't block my way. Otherwise, you'll suffer if I don't hold back. The 4 of them were stunned and could not help but laugh. Miss, you're scaring us. Zhiyu Yundong sighed. Seeing that they were slowly crowding around him, He immediately handed the box in his hand to Xue Rong. "Hold it. Stand there and don't move." Xue Rong, who was about to walk forward, suddenly stopped. The next moment, he widened his eyes and watched in shock as Yundong flipped someone to the ground. Then, she picked up a stick from the ground and hit the other person's back. Then, she kicked another person's knee. That person's face instantly twisted as he knelt on the ground. In the end, she walked towards the last person. That person watched helplessly as his 3 accomplices fell to the ground in an instant. His expression changed. He looked in horror at Yundong, whose hair was not even messy. "Ah!" he screamed and turned to run. Yundong sneered and threw away the stick in his hand. She patted her dress and tidied her clothes. She walked back to Xue Rong's side, took the box, and strode out of the alley. Xue Rong was still standing on the spot, suspecting that there was something wrong with his eyes. How was this possible? Miss was alone, weak, wearing a dress that got in the way. She was clearly still young. But she had actually dealt with all 4 of them in the blink of an eye. "Xue Rong." Yundong called him from outside. "Coming." Xue Rong glanced at the person on the ground again and hurriedly turned around to follow. Yundong keenly sensed a slight change in his attitude, as if he had become more respectful. The 2 of them did not speak along the way. They were about to reach the entrance of the inn. Xue Rong finally couldn't help but ask, "Young Miss Martial Arts Competition?" Yundong raised his eyebrows. "You should know that I fled from the Yongning Prefecture to the Xuanhe Prefecture, right?" Xue Rong had been following her. When she chatted with Grandpa Yu, she would mention the past from time to time. Xue Rong thought for a moment and came to a realization. That's right. Miss had come all the way to the Xuanhe Prefecture without Old Master by her side. What she had experienced was simply unimaginable. How could those 4 people stop Miss? But he still felt that Miss was very powerful. It had to be known that on the way to escape, the fate of women was usually not very good, especially when there was no one to protect them. However, Miss had to protect her family all the way to the Xuanhe Prefecture safely. Clearly, she was stronger than he had imagined. "All right, you go back to the inn first. I'll make a trip to the pharmacy." Yundong got down from the carriage. "Yes." Chapter 469. This is a life-saving thing. Yundong went to the pharmacy next door and grabbed a few herbs. Then, she found an empty place and wrapped the letter for Qin Wenjing with oil paper in 2 layers before placing it in the secret compartment of the box that she had just made. She took a hairpin and placed it in the box before covering it. Then, she took the medicine bag and box to an escort company not far away. She went straight to the escort in charge. "I want to send something to Fengkai County in Xuanhe Prefecture, but the thing I want to send is very urgently needed. It's best if it can be delivered within 4 days." The escort leader frowned. 4 days. It was a little rushed to travel from Wanqing Prefecture to Xuanhe Prefecture. He did not agree and only asked, "What's to be sent?" Yundong took out a medicine bag and a box. "I have a friend who's terminally ill and needs medicine urgently. These are the medicines I found for her. They are for saving her life. And this box. She left the hairpin inside with me. It's something her mother left for her. Let's leave it for her as a memento." The escort leader understood. This was a life-saving thing, and it didn't leave any regrets. After a pause, he looked at Yundong and said, "Well, take this escort, but you know that if we want to rush to the Xuanhe Prefecture in such a short time, not to mention traveling day and night, we'll definitely have to change horses in between. I'm afraid this price is not cheap." "I know. Here's 100 taels of silver. Is it enough?" The escort leader's expression relaxed a little. "That's enough. In a few days, at most 2 people were required to deliver the thing. It was not a loss to earn 100 taels. Furthermore, the journey to the Xuanhe Prefecture was very peaceful. It was not like they were escorting a large number of goods, so they would not encounter any danger. It wouldn't cost much to change horses. He just needed to make up the difference in price." Yundong discussed with the escort leader again and gave him the address. He also repeatedly reminded him that the escort this time was for saving lives. If the item could be delivered as soon as possible, It should be delivered as soon as possible. She knew that this escort agency was trustworthy. The escort leader valued loyalty. Moreover, the escort leader had said that he would do this job himself. Yundong was relieved and turned to leave. She had no choice. If she just let the escort agency deliver the letter, she would be finished if she accidentally lost it or if someone saw the contents. She bought medicine and made a secret compartment. Although it took some effort, it was at least safer. In the future, she had to think of a way to get some secret code or something. Her family would understand and find the information she wanted them to know. This way, she wouldn't have to worry about others seeing the letter. This time, the address Yundong gave the escort leader was Qin Wenzheng's school. She was afraid that someone would know about Qin Wenzheng, so the recipient was simply Ge. Qin Wenzheng was such a smart person. When he saw the medicine packet, he should be able to guess that she had sent it to him, right? After all, he knew that she had come to Wanqing Prefecture to look for medicine. She had given him medicine for no reason, and there was also an inexplicable hairpin and box. He would definitely notice that something was wrong. He was a young top scholar after all, so his brain worked quickly. Yundong expressed that she was very confident in Qin Wenzheng. Hopefully, he would not want to disappoint him. As for the 100 taels of silver, she would get it back from the Xin family. After she was done, she turned around and walked towards the inn. Before leaving, she even went to the ready-to-wear shop to buy a few sets of clothes for Dajiang and Xue Rong. When she went to Grandpa Yu's house, she didn't bring Dajiang's 2 sets of tattered clothes back. She couldn't wear those clothes at all. They were all patched up. Could it be that she was wearing the clothes cleanly and let her father wear dirty clothes? Carrying his clothes, Yundong's footsteps became much lighter. Unexpectedly, as soon as he entered the inn, he saw a familiar middle-aged man. Wasn't this the man who was talking to Zhiyuan in the room that day? Chapter 470. So powerful Yundong remembered that he said that he would personally make a trip to the Xuanhe prefecture in a few days to look for the farmer who made white sugar. Heir, if you want to go, you have to be able to do it. As the middle-aged man walked upstairs, Yundong had already found an angle and walked behind a potted plant in the corner. There was no one there. She was holding the toy gun. Just as the man Zhiyuan called Uncle Wei was about to walk up the last step, she instantly hit his leg. Uncle Wei felt a sharp pain in his legs and fell to the side uncontrollably. The waiter was the first to notice that something was wrong. He hurriedly shouted, "Be careful." He wanted to rush forward to support her, but it was too late. Uncle Wei wanted to grab the railing with both hands, but he couldn't. He rolled down the stairs. A customer who was about to go upstairs subconsciously stood to the side. His hands were still tightly gripping the railing as he watched him roll down. Yundong almost laughed out loud. She hurriedly covered her mouth and walked out from behind the potted plant. Uncle Wei rolled to the bottom. His face was pale and he was sweating profusely. He held his leg and cried out in pain. So powerful. She was afraid that the fall wouldn't be serious enough, and she wanted to stab him again later. The waiter hurriedly ran up, and the others in the hall also rushed forward to help. Instantly, there was a commotion below. As Yundong walked over, she searched for the 2 bullets and quickly put away the destruction evidence. Then, without even looking at Uncle Wei, who was carried out of the door, she went upstairs. Tong Shuidao came out and asked curiously, "Miss, you're back. What happened downstairs? It's so noisy." "Oh, someone accidentally rolled down the stairs. Be careful when you take the stairs next time." "Of course, my lady." Yundong entered the room. Dajiang was still awake and Xue Rong was serving him porridge. "I'll do it." Yundong placed the clothes on the table, took the porridge bowl, and personally fed it to Dajiang. "Father, how do you feel today?" "Much better. Dr. Yu said that you gave him a lot of money. He used the best medicine, and it doesn't hurt much when I turn my body now. Seriously, if you have some money, just save for yourself in the future. There's no need to use the best medicine." "Won't I recover after a few more days?" Yundong fed him a mouthful. "Father, Don't you want to get better as soon as possible and go back to see mother and brother and sister? Dajiang immediately stopped talking. He just opened his mouth and obediently finished the porridge. Then, she leaned against the folded blanket and sighed softly. I wonder how they are now. Yundong, tell me about the situation at home. I'm very concerned. Okay. In the past 2 days, Dajiang had either been sleeping and recuperating while Yundong had been busy with other things. They really hadn't sat down properly to talk about family matters. Yundong took a fan from the side and fanned him. The weather was already hot, and Dajiang's wound was drenched in sweat. Mother has always been thinking about father. She has dreamed of you several times. Moreover, mother's illness has a high chance of being cured. We found an imperial physician who gave mother an acupuncture session. Although she hasn't recovered now, it won't worsen in the future. He said that as long as he finds the last medicine, he can completely cure mother. Dajiang's eyes lit up when he heard that. He was slightly excited. Really? Of course it's true. Actually, I came to Wanqing Prefecture this time to look for that medicine. Chapter 471. Let's say something delightful. What medicine? It's a medicine called Bimuzi. Don't worry, father. I already have clues. Xue Rong, who was standing behind Yundong, was slightly stunned. However, he quickly regained his composure. Yundong glanced at him from the corner of her eye before continuing to say to Dajiang, Father, don't worry about mother. This kind of thing can't be rushed. When we find Bimuzi, everything will naturally be fine. Dajiang nodded. Yes, there's no hurry. I've already waited for so long. I don't mind waiting a little longer. Besides, even if Liu Niang couldn't recover in her lifetime, he would still take good care of her. Yundong saw that he was a little sad and immediately changed the topic. On the other hand, Yunshu is much more lively now. He's already in school. Dajiang immediately said in surprise, he went to study. That's right. His master used to be the top scholar. The students he took in were all of good character. He was the youngest among his classmates. Everyone took good care of him. Now, he's so happy that he forgets about home. The smile on Dajiang's face widened. The joy on his face was obvious. Good, good. Yunshu is starting to read and write. He even took the top scholar as his master. This is something that many people don't even dare to think about. He will definitely be promising in the future. Dajiang had thought that no matter how much his family objected, he would definitely send Yunshu to school when Yunshu was grown. He had already been destroyed by the Zhiyuan family. He would never allow Yunshu, who was also talented, to be mediocre for the rest of his life. Only by studying for the imperial examination and leaving the Zhiyuan village would his future be bright. However, he did not expect that after Liu Niang injured her head, he could not split up. Then, they encountered a famine. The family fled their hometown. Fortunately, Yunshu still went to school when he was in his initiation year. This was all thanks to Yundong. His daughter was more capable than him. What about Yunke? Dajiang was most worried about her. She was too young. When she was still in the Zhiyuan family, she couldn't even walk steadily because she didn't eat well or receive good care. She had been unconscious most of the time during their escape. He often had the illusion that she was not even breathing. He was terrified. Keek. Yundong laughed. She's a little foodie now. She can eat anything. Yunshu calls her a fat chick. It makes her so angry that she keeps saying that she doesn't want her brother anymore. But once Yunshu goes to school, she gets anxious when she doesn't see her brother for a day. Every day when she goes home, she's the first to run out to welcome him. Dajiang laughed when he heard that. Yundong's words were like a painting. In the painting, there was Liu Niang and his 3 children. The family was happy, warm, and blissful. He could not wait to recover from his injuries and go back. Yundong said a lot of interesting things. But for some reason, she didn't dare to mention Shao Qingyuan. She felt that mentioning him in front of an old father who had just found his daughter would agitate him. Yes, her father was still recuperating. It was better to say something that made him happy. Yundong did not say anything about Yuanji. At the mention of him, she would definitely talk about eldest aunt Zhiyu, who had yet to be found, and Am Mo Xulin, who had passed away. Dajiang doted on Am Mo Xulin very much. If he knew that she was gone, he would probably feel terrible. Yundong only mentioned interesting things until Dajiang looked a little tired. Then, she let him rest and went out. Xue Rong followed him out. He pursed his lips as he looked at Yundong, as if he had something to say. Chapter 472, Xue Rong's Distrust. Yundong walked towards her room. Seeing that he was still standing there, she raised her eyebrows and said, "Come in. Don't you have something to tell me?" Xue Rong lowered his head and followed her into the room. He carefully closed the door. He even went over to pour a cup of tea for Yundong. This person had really been professionally trained. "Miss, you said that you have a clue about Bai Muzi. Were you referring to the Xin family?" Yundong thought that he indeed knew. "I were. Why? Are you trying to persuade me to give up? Do you think it's impossible to get Bai Muzi from the Xin family?" Xue Rong thought for a moment. It's indeed impossible to obtain Bai Muzi from the Xin family, because it is no longer in the Xin family. Yundong suddenly stood up from his chair. "What did you say?" Xue Rong said, "There was indeed a Bai Muzi in the Xin family. However, 3 months ago, the eldest young master of the Xin family suddenly fell ill, and Bai Muzi was used by him. What he didn't say was that it was also because of that illness that 2 servants were killed in the courtyard of the eldest young master of the Xin family. The rest were sold, and he was one of them." Yundong frowned fiercely. 2 to 3 months ago, didn't that mean that it was gone before Dr. Song wrote to her? Communications in this era were so inconvenient that the information lagged for so long. "You promise, no more?" Xue Rong knelt down. "I can swear that I didn't lie to you just now." "All right, get up. I don't mean to question you." Yundong rubbed her temples and sighed inwardly. However, Xue Rong still knelt on the ground and had no intention of getting up. Yundong frowned. "Why? Is there anything else?" "Miss, I know that old master's injury was caused by the second young master of the Xin family." Xue Rong lowered his head. "Miss, do you want to avenge old master? You don't think I can do it?" Xue Rong pursed his lips. Hearing Yundong's words, his body trembled and he hesitated for a moment. He shut his mouth and did not say anything else. Yundong was so angry that she almost laughed. "Xue Rong, I know that you used to serve the eldest young master of the Xin family. The Xin family is rich and has many rules. There are also many demons and monsters inside, and there are endless open and hidden conflicts. I understand that you've developed a cautious personality, but I'm not the Xin family. There's no need to hide anything, and you don't have to be afraid that he'll be unhappy if I hear it. I hope you can be straightforward. I won't blame you." Xue Rong was stunned for a moment before he smiled bitterly in his heart. After a long time, he nodded slightly. "I don't think you can't do it, miss. It's just that the Xin residence is far larger than what the outside world sees. The inside is complicated. Not only does it have the prefecture magistrate as its backer, but it also has someone in the capital and even. In short, it won't be easy for Miss to deal with second young master." Yundong sneered. After saying so much, didn't he still think that she couldn't do it? Indeed, if she was alone, she would consider it carefully. After all, dealing with the Xin family was not the same as dealing with the Zhiyu family. But didn't the Xin family want to die? She could give them a push. "All right, I know what you're saying. I know what to do. Go back and take care of my father first." Xue Rong felt that Miss would not let the matter rest, but he could not say anything. In the following days, Yundong focused on taking care of Dajiang. It was as if he had nothing else to do other than let him recuperate. Xue Rong had a very strange feeling. Miss seemed to have given up, but she also seemed to be planning something, but she did not do anything. 6 days later, when Dajiang could walk on the ground, someone came to the inn. Chapter 473:1 Am Mo Xulin. When Yundong went downstairs, he brushed past someone. When that person passed by her, he said in a low voice, "Miss Zhiyu, let's talk in private." Jiyu Yundong was stunned for a moment. She turned her head and glanced at him. This person looked very ordinary and was dressed in the same style as the guests in the inn. No one would notice him in the crowd. But Jiyu Yundong could still feel that he was constantly tense. He was a martial artist. She calculated the time and roughly guessed who this person was. Seeing that she didn't say anything or respond, the other party thought that he had been too abrupt and quickly added, "Mr. Qin asked me to come." Jiyu Yundong nodded and the man went downstairs first. Seeing him leave the inn, Jiyu Yundong slowly walked out of the door as if she was taking a leisurely stroll. That person walked at a moderate pace in front, and Jiyu Yundong followed him slowly, until he turned at an intersection and entered a small courtyard. When Jiyu Yundong entered the courtyard, he realized that there were about a dozen people inside. All of them looked travel-worn. They looked like they had just arrived at Wanqing Prefecture. Upon seeing her enter, one of them, who seemed to be their leader, immediately stood up. "Miss Jiyu, Am Mo Xulin. I'm here on Lord Qin's orders to investigate the Xin family. By the way, this is from Lord Qin." He took out a letter and handed it to Jiyu Yundong. She opened the envelope. There were 2 full pieces of paper. Jiyu Yundong read it quickly, but after reading it, she immediately cursed in her heart. The content of Qin Wenzheng's letter was very simple. He said that the news sent by Jiyu Yundong was very timely because the emperor was intending to deal with the magistrate of Wanqing Prefecture and the Xin family. Previously, when the new emperor ascended the throne, he planted 2 trusted aides in Yongning Prefecture after the famine and Qingan Prefecture after the chaos. Prefecture Magistrate Dai of Xuanhe Prefecture also became the new emperor's subordinate. The commotion was too great. If he wanted to touch the prefecture magistrate of Wanqing Prefecture who had a deep foundation, he would be a little too hasty. Especially since the Wanqing Prefecture had the Xin family. The officials and merchants colluded to control the entire Wanqing Prefecture. The emperor knew that the prefecture magistrate wasn't a good person, and he also knew that the Xin family wasn't clean. It was obvious just from how luxurious their residence was. Now that more than half a year had passed, the emperor was indeed prepared to take down Wanqing Prefecture. It could be seen from the fact that he had started to support the Duan family. However, the emperor had been collecting information on the Xin family and the magistrate. This information could not be too small. Otherwise, who knew when they would make a comeback? Just as they were looking for a breakthrough, Jiyu Yundong unexpectedly gave them a pleasant surprise. The Xin family was simply too daring. They actually dared to have dealings with the other 2 countries. This kind of dealings was not ordinary business dealings. Clearly, it was related to the imperial court. Actually, Qin Wenzheng also knew that with the ability of the Xin family, even if they had dealings, it was only some money transactions. The Xin family was not qualified to come into contact with the center of political power. Even if they wanted to betray their country, they would not be able to do it. However, this was enough. Especially when it was related to the prefecture magistrate here, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to kill the entire family. Therefore, Qin Wenzheng sent people over to prepare for a drastic reorganization. The question was, why did he want her to find a way to get incriminating evidence? Jiyu Yundong wanted to slam the table. Wasn't her mission over after informing them? It was enough for her to just wait and watch the show. Why was Qin Wenzheng still adding trouble for her? Jiyu Yundong slammed the letter on the table and pointed at Mo Xulin. Chapter 474, Seduction. You all seem to be highly skilled in martial arts. If you want to find evidence, you can just sneak in, right? Jiyu Yundong was so angry that she laughed. I'm a weak woman, and you actually handed the most important thing to me. Do you think I'm too good-looking and want others to chop me into pieces? Mo Xulin was speechless. Miss, don't feel so good about yourself, all right? He coughed lightly and said, the Xin residence is heavily guarded. It's naturally not a problem for us to sneak in, but it's easy to alert the enemy. Heavily guarded? Didn't her father, Jiyu Dajiang, sneak in? No, Jiyu Dajiang could only ask around outside. He couldn't go to the master's courtyard, let alone the places where evidence was placed. Mo Xulin continued, actually, It's not like no one has infiltrated the Xin family before. They even entered Master Xin's study, but there's nothing in the study. If we want to find evidence of guilt, I'm afraid a few days won't be enough. If you can't find it in the study, do you think I can? Once we alert the enemy, the Xin family will be easy. We can just capture them anyway, but the forces in the capital that colluded with the Xin family will be on guard. Yundong was enlightened. Are you making such a big move this time? It won't be easy to clean up the mess. So, what the emperor really wanted to deal with were those people in the capital. All the more reason for her not to get involved. Mo Xulin lowered his eyes. He could not say anything in front of Yundong. However, seeing that she was unwilling, he immediately thought of what Qin Wenjing had said. He could only take a step back and say, Miss Zhiyu, if you're really unwilling, then, can you figure out the approximate location of the important letters in the Xin residence? Seeing that Yundong wanted to refute, he immediately added, Lord Qin said that since Miss Zhiyu has the ability to obtain the news that Zhiyuan colluded with another country, you can definitely do these things. He really thinks highly of me. Lord Qin also said that if Miss makes a great contribution and the Xin family is raided later, Miss can choose a few valuable items first. Yundong stood up. All right, I'll go back and think about it. She kept the letter and turned to leave the small courtyard. When the others saw this, they looked at each other and asked Mo Xulin, did she agree or not? Mo Xulin was unfathomable. What do you think? However, he quickly restrained his expression. Inform the Duan family and ask them to cooperate with us if necessary. Should we inform Commander Liu of Wanqing Prefecture? One had to bring troops over to arrest a family. It's said that Commander Liu doesn't have a good relationship with the prefecture magistrate. Perhaps he can help. However, Mo Xulin shook his head. It's hard to say if they're not on good terms. Maybe they're just putting on a show for us. Third brother has already gone elsewhere to mobilize troops. Let's wait a few more days. Yes. The others in the courtyard quickly went to work. Yundong felt a headache when she returned to the inn. Qin Wenjing was indeed unreliable. However, although she was cursing Qin Wenjing in her heart, her mind still started to spin. In the following days, Yundong was very busy. Tong Shuidao did not know what she was doing. In any case, she would do whatever young miss instructed her to do. Dajiang was a little worried. He had once asked Yundong, but she said that it was for business. Only Xue Rong started to feel uneasy. A few days later, when he saw Yundong writing the names of everyone in the Xin family on paper in the room, his thoughts were finally confirmed. He had a feeling that it was just as he expected. Chapter 475, finally talking. Yundong glanced at him. What's the matter? Miss, you must deal with the Xin family. Xue Rong finally exhaled and asked in a low voice, how confident are you? 90%. Yundong smiled. Xue Rong looked at her in surprise and disbelief. Miss, why? Don't you believe me? You've been here for so many days, so you should know how I conduct myself. When have you seen me boast? Xue Rong paused. He had indeed been silently paying attention to Miss' words and actions these past few days. He more or less knew her personality. However, he already knew that the young lady's identity was only that of a peasant girl. She had no power or influence against the Xin family and could not gain any advantage. 90% confident. Xue Rong suddenly thought of how busy Yundong had been these past few days and how mysterious he looked. Could it be that Miss had a helper? And this helper was not an ordinary person? If that was the case, Xue Rong was slightly excited. His fingers tugged and tugged. After a long time, he seemed to have made up his mind. If Miss wants to deal with the Xin family, I can help. Yundong raised her eyebrows and put down her brush. She placed the piece of paper with the names of the various masters of the Xin family aside and smiled. You're finally going to talk. Xue Rong was stunned. Finally. Yundong faced him. I'm listening. Go ahead. She knew that Xue Rong definitely knew something, and it was something that others did not know. Previously, he had said that the Xin family was rich and powerful. Not only did they have people in the capital, but they even what? He did not finish his sentence, but Yundong could guess that Xue Rong probably knew that the Xin family had connections beyond his country. Moreover, Xue Rong had a grudge against the Xin family. As expected, Xue Rong's expression was not good when he talked about his days in the Xin family. "Miss, you know that I used to serve eldest young master in his courtyard. 3 months ago, all the servants in eldest young master's courtyard, except his nanny, were sold. 2 of them were beaten to death. The reason was that they didn't serve eldest young master well and almost caused eldest young master's illness to act up and kill him." Yundong nodded. He even ate Bai Muzi because of this. Xue Rong became slightly excited. "One of the 2 servants who were beaten to death is my younger sister." Yundong raised his head and looked at him in surprise. "However, no one in the residence knows that. My sister and I have acknowledged each other in private. It's not easy to serve the eldest young master in his courtyard. The eldest young master is sick all year round and has a bad temper. My sister suffered a lot because of this. Although we worked in the eldest young master's courtyard, we couldn't enter the inner room to serve him usually. The eldest young master has a special guard to help him search." He took a deep breath and said, "Search for children. Only the nanny could enter the inner room. That day, the nanny was not around because she had something on." The eldest young master suddenly shouted in the inner room. It was Xue Rong's sister and another maidservant who ran in. In the end, they saw a girl lying on the ground with a pair of scissors in her hand. The scissors were stained with blood, and so was the eldest young master's neck. The girl must have stabbed the young master, but the girl was also killed by the young master on the spot. Xue Rong's sister was scared to death at that time. She and the other maidservant were at a loss. Only when the eldest young master looked over fiercely did the 2 of them hurriedly stop the bleeding. The eldest young master might have lost too much blood and fainted on the spot. The other maidservant was afraid. After she and Xue Rong's sister carried him to the bed, she said that she wanted to call a doctor and ran away on the spot. Chapter 476. A rumor: Xue Rong's sister could only take care of the eldest young master by herself. When she was bandaging eldest young master, her fingers trembled in fear and she accidentally spilled the medicinal powder on the bed. She quickly found a rag to wipe it off. Her movements were too erratic, and she accidentally pushed aside the pillow on the eldest young master's bed and saw 2 letters inside. She knew that she shouldn't be curious, but at the same time, she also knew that she had seen what had happened today. She was afraid that eldest young master wouldn't let her off easily. Since she was going to die anyway, what did it matter if she took a look? At that time, the sister calmed down and carefully took out the letter. There were 2 letters. One was a letter where the Xin family had contacted the Liu country. The other was a report from a subordinate of the eldest young master regarding the situation in the capital. Sister Xue felt that her heart was about to jump out, and cold sweat kept pouring out. At this moment, urgent footsteps came from outside the door. Sister Xue hurriedly stuffed the letters back in. She slid under the bed and hid inside. It was the eldest young master's nanny who came in. She called him anxiously a few times and heaved a sigh of relief when she saw that he had woken up. "The doctor will be here soon. How do you feel?" "Nanny, under the pillow. There are 2 letters. Take them back and hide them." Xin Jiming's breathing was weak, and his words were intermittent. The nanny put away the 2 letters but did not leave immediately. When the doctor came and young master's injuries stabilized a little, she left while no one was paying attention. However, Sister Xue had been hiding under the bed. She wanted to wait until everyone left before coming out. However, there was always someone guarding the room. The eldest young master's condition suddenly worsened in the middle of the night. His eyes and mouth were crooked, as if he was about to have a stroke. The doctor said that the young master's health was not good to begin with, and he had lost too much blood this time. His life was in danger, and the Bai Muzi was used up at that time. Fortunately, on the second day, his condition improved, and there was finally a time when there was no one in the room. Sister Xue took advantage of this time to crawl out from under the bed. When she came out, she realized that the entire courtyard was guarded. She could not even leave the eldest young master's house. She even vaguely heard that the maidservant who had seen the eldest young master's condition with her previously tried to escape from the Xin residence, but was captured and brought back. Now, the guards in the residence were looking for Sister Xue everywhere. Sister Xue knew that she would not be able to escape death. She was in despair, but she was unwilling to accept her fate, so she returned to the house. She took the brush on the eldest young master's table and hid under the bed and table to write down everything she saw and heard. This letter was for Xue Rong. At the end of the letter, she even instructed Xue Rong to think of a way to leave the Xin family. Something would happen sooner or later if the Xin family colluded with foreign countries. After writing, she stuffed the letter into her shoes and socks. When she was found by the guards in the residence, she was beaten to death on the spot. When Xue Rong heard the news, he only saw his sister's corpse. Xue Rong found the letter when he was collecting her corpse. He hated the Xin family, but he was too weak to take revenge. Then, the others in the courtyard were also sold. Yundong listened to the entire process and sighed inwardly. Seeing the forbearance and hatred on Xue Rong's usually expressionless face, she could only say in a low voice, "Don't worry, I'll avenge your sister this time." "Thank you, miss." So to speak, everything was taken by young Master Xin's nanny. The answer was really unexpected. "This nanny is quite trusted." Xue Rong thought for a moment and said, "Actually, there has always been a rumor in the Xin family." Chapter 477, The Xin family has been raided. Yundong's interest was piqued. "What rumor?" "Eldest young master's nanny is actually old Master Xin's woman. Her status is even higher than ordinary concubines. I heard that when old master was young, he went out to discuss business and brought this nanny along." Xue Rong said, although the nanny serves eldest young master, she often enters and exits old master's study with the excuse of reporting eldest young master's situation. Yundong could not help but pause. This gossip was a little big. "Is the nanny beautiful?" Xue Rong was speechless. Wasn't Miss Focus a little off? However, he still shook his head honestly. "She can't compare to master's concubines." Yundong pushed a cup of tea over. "All right, I know what you're talking about. Go back and take care of my father. I'm going out for a while." "Yes, my lady." Yundong left the inn and returned not long after. His expression was obviously relaxed. In the following days, she didn't leave the inn much. She spent most of her time by Dajiang's side. Seeing that his health was improving, the smile on Yundong's face became lighter. When he recovered, they could go back. Half a month later, Dajiang could already go downstairs for a walk. Although it was still unnatural, it was a luxury for Dajiang, who had been cooped up in his room for nearly a month. Yundong helped him down. Standing at the entrance of the inn, Dajiang heaved a sigh of relief. "In 2 days, let's go to the Yu family to see Uncle Yu and the others." Ever since that day, Yundong did not go to the Yu family again. Instead, she let Xue Rong make 2 trips and mentioned Dajiang's injury. Grandpa Yu wanted to come over and take a look, but he was stopped by Xue Rong. It had not been peaceful recently. Yundong had instructed him not to go out as long as possible, especially since this inn was very close to the Xin residence. "Why do I feel that something is amiss?" Dajiang suddenly said. "There are many people on the streets." Before Yundong could say anything, the waiter beside him came over and nodded. "That's right. For some reason, there have been a lot of people these past few days. Our inn's business is doing well. I thought there was something happy to celebrate in the city, but I didn't hear anything after asking around." Yundong laughed. "Something happy? A storm is coming." With that, she helped Dajiang in and found a seat in the hall to eat. The waiter touched his head and looked at the bright sun outside. "Where is the storm coming from? Why don't I understand?" Xue Rong thought, if you understand, you can be the shopkeeper. On the other hand, when Dajiang heard Yundong's words, he asked curiously in a low voice, "Yundong, do you know something? What's going to happen at Wanqing Prefecture?" "Father will know the result in 2 days." However, there was no need to wait for 2 more days. The next morning, the waiter ran into the hall in a panic. Yundong was coming downstairs and saw that his clothes were wet and his hat was gone. Strands of hair were stuck to his face. He was panting and his face was filled with fear. Moreover, at this moment, there was a loud rumble outside. A bolt of lightning struck down, accompanied by the patter of rain. As expected, the atmosphere was already appropriate. The waiter wiped his face and said in a trembling voice, "Shopkeeper, the prefecture magistrate has been arrested. The Xin residence has also been raided." Chapter 478. Everyone's shock. The waiter's words suddenly sounded in the hall. The shopkeeper was so shocked that he forgot about the abacus. Even the guests who were originally sitting there chatting and resting turned to look at him in shock. The shopkeeper walked out from behind the counter without a word and asked anxiously, "What did you say just now? What happened? What do you mean by the prefecture magistrate has been arrested and the Xin residence has been raided?" Yes. What happened? The Xin family? Our Wanqing prefecture's 100-year-old clan was actually raided. A customer stood up and walked over in disbelief. The waiter was still in shock and his words were a little ethereal. One don't know either. Just now, when I went home to get my things, I walked to the street at the entrance of the Xin residence and saw many soldiers guarding it. The plaque of the Xin residence was also smashed down by those soldiers. All the servants in the residence were taken away. Then, a long row of people were escorted away. All of them lowered their heads and cried. What about the old and young masters of the Xin family? The waiter shook his head vigorously. No, I don't know. I heard that they are still in the residence and haven't come out. Someone even said that they might have been killed by those soldiers on the spot. Not long after, I heard someone run over and say that the prefecture magistrate's office was also surrounded by soldiers. The prefecture magistrate's family has been arrested. I don't know what's going on. Everyone was shocked when they heard that. The shopkeeper slapped his thigh. No wonder there have been many people in the prefecture city recently. I knew something big would happen. As expected. But this matter is too big. I don't even dare to think about it. The waiter finally came back to his senses and nodded repeatedly when he heard the shopkeeper's words. I also heard that these soldiers were transferred over from elsewhere. All of them are unfamiliar fierce faces. They're too terrifying. I originally wanted to go to the entrance of the Xin residence to ask around, but I didn't dare to and ran back. So, did anyone say what they did? The waiter shook his head sadly. I don't know. Yundong was still standing on the stairs and listening. Xue Rong was standing behind her at some point. He looked a little agitated and his eyes were slightly red. Miss, Yundong turned to look at him. Xue Rong tried his best to smile. Miss, you actually did it. The Xin family was such a colossus. Their power was magnificent and they had the backing of the prefecture magistrate and the high officials in the capital. But now, in just half a month, not only had their home been raided, but even the forces behind them had been uprooted. Xue Rong thought that if it wasn't for the fact that he was afraid of attracting too much attention outside, he would have knelt down on the spot and kowtowed to the Miss Yundong smiled. Let's go and take a look. Yes. Xue Rong shook his hand and a smile finally appeared on his face. He followed Yundong downstairs. Tong Xuedao, who was standing upstairs, glared at his back fiercely. This Xue Rong must have ulterior motives. He must be a toad lusting after swan meat. He was clearly bought to serve the old master, but he kept approaching Miss. He was simply shameless. Miss had been deceived by him. She was so angry. Tong Xuedao kept staring at his figure as he disappeared from the door. Only then did she stomp her feet angrily and turn around to return to her room. The rain outside had stopped, and even the air felt wet. Yundong and Xue Rong walked all the way to the Xin family. Many people were talking about this along the way. Especially not far from the Xin family, everyone was pointing at the place. However, there were soldiers guarding the door, so no one dared to go forward. When they saw Yundong and her servant walking forward, they looked at her as if she was courting death. Chapter 479. Old Fourth playing dead. Yundong ignored these strange gazes. When they were almost at the entrance of the Xin residence, the soldiers guarding the door shifted their gaze to her. At the same time, A girl standing at the side looked at her. The girl was about the same age as her. She was dressed in silk and satin. Her skin was fair and tender, and she was beautiful. She had a refined temperament and had 2 maidservants by her side. However, she only glanced at Yundong indifferently before turning around and continuing to speak to the soldiers at the door. "I'm really the Duan family's young lady. My brother is inside. If you don't believe me, you can call my eldest brother out." Before she could finish, she heard the officer's impatient voice. "No means no. Wait outside." His tone was cold and he did not seem to care about her at all. Yundong felt that this soldier would probably be doomed alone for the rest of his life. Miss Duan stomped her feet angrily and walked to the side. The maidservant beside her hurriedly comforted her. Only then did Yundong step forward. However, it was Xue Rong who spoke to the officer. "Sir, we're looking for Lord Mo Xulin." Miss Duan glanced at them and snorted softly. No one heard her. The soldier glanced at Yundong and said the same thing as before, "Wait outside." Phut! Miss Duan finally couldn't help but laugh. Yundong looked over and saw that she had resumed her dignified and elegant self. Yundong turned her head and happened to see a familiar figure walking past the door. The figure glanced at the door and met her gaze. However, in the next moment, he immediately turned his head and quickly walked to the other side. Yundong was so angry that she laughed. "Stop right there, Mo Xulin's 4th brother." As she spoke, she squatted down and picked up a stone. She aimed it at the back of his head and threw it. She moved so quickly that no one could react. When they came back to their senses, the soldiers at the door instantly glared at her. "What are you doing? You're courting death." As they spoke, they suddenly pulled out their weapons and stabbed at her. The Duan family's young lady was shocked and quickly retreated. Xue Rong subconsciously stood in front of Yundong. The man whose head had been smashed finally stopped pretending to be dead. He hurriedly ran over and waved his hand. "Hey, stop, stop. This is Miss Zhiyu. She's one of us. She's one of us." The soldiers were stunned, but they still put away their weapons. The man then walked to Yundong's side and smiled. "Miss Zhiyu, why are you here? You didn't make a sound just now. I didn't even recognize you. They almost hurt you." Yundong had never seen such a shameless person. Her voice pierced the sky. He must be deaf to not hear her. "Can I go in?" "Of course," the man said with a smile. He made the soldiers retreat and quickly led Yundong inside. Seeing this, the Duan family's young lady was stunned. She quickly took 2 steps forward. "Sir, please wait." The man frowned and stopped to look at her unhappily. "What is it?" "Lord, I'm from the Duan family. My eldest brother is Duan Qian. He's inside. Can I go in and talk to him?" "No." With that, the man turned to smile at Yundong and led her inside. "The stairs here are steep. Miss, be careful." Miss Duan was speechless. She was so angry. Chapter 480, a small box. This was the second time Yundong had come to the Xin residence. The last time, she had entered through the back door. This time, he had walked through the main door. The scenery in front of him was completely different. The Xin family was indeed extremely extravagant. No wonder the emperor wanted to destroy it. As she admired the surrounding scenery, she spoke to Xue Rong. "Some people have black hearts. When they want me to help them, their attitude is so kind. They say that after everything is over, they will let me choose whatever I want. In the end, after using me, they turn around and pretend not to know me. They even say that I didn't make a sound and they didn't recognize me. It seems that the people I work with are blind and deaf." Xue Rong silently glanced at 4th brother, who was walking in front. The man's back was tense. However, he was secretly complaining in his heart. Why was Miss Gus' gaze so sharp? Previously, she had only seen him once in the small courtyard. She had not even spoken to him. Not only did she recognize him at a glance, but she also knew his ranking. She was simply unbelievable. Yundong continued, "I've been thinking about it. I'm not familiar with certain people, and I don't know their character. Will they renege on their debt? That's why I came over early when I heard about what happened here. As expected, they actually pretended not to know me. Heh, that's amazing. Xue Rong, don't do this. You'll be beaten up easily if you do. Fourth brother finally could not stand it anymore. He quickly turned his head and smiled. Miss Zhiyu, I was wrong. I promise there won't be a next time. Why don't you hit me twice to vent your anger? No need. Just tell me where the storeroom is. I'll leave after taking what belongs to me. Yundong snorted. Fourth brother's expression froze, and his footsteps finally quickened. When he arrived at the door of the warehouse, he saw Mo Xulin standing outside and talking to a young man. Mo Xulin was stunned for a moment when he saw Yundong. The fourth brother quickly whispered into his ear. Mo Xulin's forehead darkened and he almost hit him. How could you? They did not intend to go back on their word. They just wanted to organize the stuff first and take what should be taken away. They would let Yundong choose the rest. However, fourth brother had been seen by others and deliberately turned a blind eye to her. Now, even if he didn't have the intention, others would think that he had gone back on his word. He glared at his fourth son, took a few steps forward and said to Yundong, Miss Zhiyu is here. Yes, Yundong replied coldly. Mo Xulin said, the storeroom is being tidied up. Miss Zhiyu, please go in, but, he paused and lowered his voice. After this confiscation, all the properties belong to the imperial court. There are some things that the emperor has required, so, Yundong snorted. She knew that there was a prerequisite for her privilege to choose. All right, I know. I know what I'm doing. Mo Xulin heaved a sigh of relief and called out to fourth brother, prepare a box for Miss. Yundong raised her eyebrows. After a while, she saw fourth brother carrying a box over. It was a small box that was 0 centimeters long, 20 centimeters wide, and 30 centimeters tall. So, she could only take an entire small box of things, right? TSK, they had really underestimated her. If you have the ability, come and carry an even smaller box. Yundong took the small box and led Xue Rong into the storeroom with her head held high. The young man who was talking to Mo Xulin looked on in surprise. Where did this lady come from? Lord Mo was actually so polite to her. He even heard a hint of flattery. He wanted to ask, Lord Mo, may I know which family's daughter she is? Mo Xulin said, her surname is Zhiyu. He was unwilling to say anything else. On the other hand, when fourth brother saw him, he thought of Miss Duan at the door and immediately mentioned it. Duan Qian had a headache. He apologized to Mo Xulin and hurried to the door. Chapter 481, looking at Yundong in a new light. When Yundong entered the storeroom, he realized that many people were registering the things in the storeroom. They were stunned when they saw her enter. It was Mo Xulin who came in later and asked everyone to leave first. Only then did everyone leave the storeroom with a puzzled expression. Mo Xulin said, Miss Zhiyu, take a look. What do you like? As he spoke, he pointed at two large boxes not far away. You can't touch the things inside. Yundong expressed that she understood. That was what the emperor wanted. She understood. She walked forward. There was a lot of gold, silver, jewelry, antiques, calligraphy, and expensive jade artifacts in the warehouse of the Xin family. These things were all placed in large boxes that were piled up in the huge warehouse. Yundong's eyes lit up when she walked closer. Her eyes were sparkling, and she wished she could throw herself at the glittering money. The Xin family was simply too rich. They were simply so rich that it made people want to scream. Mo Xulin was so stingy that he only gave her a small box even though there were so many things. Her contributions were only worth the price of a small box. Yundong turned around and glared at him. Mo Xulin touched his nose and said uncomfortably, Miss Zhiyu, you know that the imperial court is in urgent need of money. Although this box is small, some things are worth a lot of money. As he spoke, he picked up a piece of calligraphy. This is a masterpiece from the previous dynasty. It's worth 10,000 taels. Then, he picked up another book. This is the only book. Many scholars would die for it. Yundong thought that Mo Xulin was indeed the leader of this group of people. His positioning was very precise. He knew that she knew how to draw, so he recommended calligraphy and painting. He knew that her brother was studying, so he recommended the only book. She snorted twice, took the 2 items, and placed them in the small box in Xue Rong's hand. Although the calligraphy was too long to be kept inside, it didn't matter. It was the same outside. Seeing this, Mo Xulin secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He did not leave. He watched as Yundong walked over one box after another. She looked very carefully. Sometimes half of her body was in the box. Mo Xulin stood at the back and could not see clearly. He did not know that when Yundong was searching, she took the opportunity to put the silver ingots into her interspace. After finding 2 boxes, Yundong placed a few jade pendants and accessories into a small box. Mo Xulin glanced at it and the corner of his mouth twitched. Miss Zhiyu really did not know what was valuable. Why did she choose jade pendants and jewelry? Then, Yundong chose agate jade and pearl jade. She also saw 2 medical books that seemed to be very rare. Yes, she would bring them back to Zhiyuan. The brush and inkstone looked very valuable. She would bring them back for Yunshu, Yuanji, and her father. There was also a chessboard made of jade. It was simply extravagant. There was a huge pile of things. Yundong felt that anything that was rare enough could be stuffed into the small box. If it could not be stuffed, she would put it into her spatial storage when Mo Xulin was not paying attention. After going through all the boxes, Yundong finally rubbed her back and stood up. She looked at the small box with satisfaction. Yes, it's full. Xue Rong looked at the things inside and did not know what to say. When Mo Xulin realized that she did not find a single tael of silver, he could not help but look at her in a new light. Chapter 482. Come and see your end. Mo Xulin felt that perhaps because she used to be a farm girl, her knowledge was limited and she was not good enough at appreciating good things, so she could not tell if the items she picked were good or bad. However, she did not care about money at all. She was more interested in elegant things like books, calligraphy, and paintings. It seemed that she had a long-term vision. In the future, as long as she came into contact with more of these things, she would definitely be able to identify the good and bad things next time. Miss, are you done? Yundong nodded. She remembered that there was about half a box of gold, silver, and jewelry in her spatial storage. She said in satisfaction, I'm done. Mo Xulin heaved a sigh of relief. Shall I walk the lady out? But Yundong said, wait, I want to meet the eldest and second young masters of the Xin family. Mo Xulin frowned. Well, is it inconvenient? Mo Xulin looked at her pitifully small box. After all, he had taken advantage of her. Forget it, just let them meet. I'll bring you there. As he spoke, he led the way. After leaving the door, he let the people registering the stuff in the warehouse enter again. What Mo Xulin didn't know was that 2 days later, after all the warehouses in the Xin family were cleaned up, everyone would stare at the account book that didn't match at all with their mouths agape. They couldn't regain their senses for a long time. The masters of the Xin family were all locked up in the back room. Many people were locked up in the row of rooms. The people in different branches were locked up separately. The room in the middle should be the old master and madam of the Xin family. Yundong did not look at it. She followed Mo Xulin to the room on the left. Xin Jiming is inside. Yundong asked Xue Rong to place the small box in Mo Xulin's hand. He blocked him outside and she went in by herself. Mo Xulin was speechless. This was against the rules. Xin Jiming was the eldest young master of the Xin family, so he naturally had a wife. According to Xue Rong, that wife passed away less than 2 years after marrying him. However, Xin Jiming did not remarry. The outside world had always thought that he had a deep love for his wife and could not forget her. In addition, his health was not good and he did not want to drag others down. But who would have thought that he would do such dirty things in private? When Yundong and Xin Jiming entered, there was also his nanny in the room. Yundong raised her eyebrows and looked at the silent duo. Xin Jiming frowned when he saw the person who came in. Who are you? What do you want? Yundong took a step back and let Xue Rong come forward. Xue Rong looked at the two of them with hatred in his eyes, as if it would not be an exaggeration to cut them into pieces. He finally felt much better when he saw them tied up and unable to move. Xin Zhiming did not know him. Even though the guy had served him for a long time, he had never taken Xue Rong seriously. On the other hand, the nanny took a closer look at Xue Rong and suddenly reacted. Xue Rong. It's you. Xin Zhiming was confused. Who is it? He used to be a servant in the courtyard. He was one of the people who were sold 3 months ago. Xin Zhiming was enlightened. He looked at Xue Rong and asked, "Why are you here?" After a pause, he seemed to have thought of something and smiled. "You're very nostalgic. You've come to see your former master." Phut, Xue Rong could not help but sneer. "That's right. I'm here to see what kind of outcome you lunatics have become." Xin Zhiming and the nanny's expressions changed at the same time. "What did you say?" Chapter 483, Mo Xulin's envy. Xue Rong smiled. "If you remember selling a group of servants 3 months ago, then you should also remember the 2 maidservants who were killed at that time. One of them," he took a deep breath and his eyes turned ruthless, "was my sister." The 2 of them were stunned. They looked at Xue Rong warily. Xue Rong had already walked up to them and said maliciously, "Do you know why the Xin family lost so quickly? It's because before my sister died, she saw 2 letters in young master's room. When you were searching for her, she was hiding under the bed. She heard your conversation clearly." Xin Zhiming and the nanny's faces immediately turned pale. So that was what happened. It was actually that little girl who tricked them and exposed the place where they usually placed important letters. It was actually the dead little girl. Xue Rong was delighted to see their expressions. "Go to hell and apologize to my sister. Apologize and repent for those who were killed by you. It's not in vain for you to live in this world." Ha ha ha. He laughed until tears came out. Yundong turned to look at him. However, Xin Zhiming seemed to have finally come back to his senses. He rushed towards Xue Rong with bloodshot eyes. Yundong raised her leg and kicked him back. Xin Zhiming's body was not in good condition. The moment he fell to the ground, he started coughing violently. Seeing that he was coughing up blood, Xue Rong finally wiped his face and turned to Yundong. "Miss, let's go." "Yeah." The 2 of them no longer looked at the dejected nanny and Xin Zhiming, who was still unable to get up. When they walked out of the door, they felt that the entire sky was bright. It was as if the previous storm was an illusion. After exiting the room, Mo Xulin glanced at the 2 people inside and gave a look to the soldier on guard at the side, telling him to go and see Xin Zhiming. At the very least, before the man was dragged away to be beheaded, he did not want the man to die. When he saw the soldier run in, he turned around again. He had wanted to say something to Yundong. Unexpectedly, when he turned around, he saw Xue Rong kneeling on the ground with a bang and kowtowing 3 times to Yundong. "Thank you, miss." Yundong was also shocked by him. She quickly smiled and helped him up. "For what? If it weren't for you, we wouldn't have found the evidence so quickly." As she spoke, she turned around and took out a jade pendant from the small box Mo Xulin was holding. She handed it over. "I don't know how much this is worth, but it's definitely not ordinary if it's placed in the Xin family's warehouse. Take it as a reward." Xue Rong stared blankly at the jade pendant that was stuffed into his hand. It took him a while to react. He hurriedly wanted to return it to her, but Yundong glared at him fiercely. Xue Rong fell silent and could only accept it carefully. His heart was filled with sourness and warmth. This was a feeling he had never felt in all his years in the Xin residence. Unfortunately, his sister did not have such good fortune and did not meet such a good master. Xue Rong wiped the corners of his eyes and hurriedly followed Yundong. He did not notice that Mo Xulin, who was carrying a small box behind him, was looking at him with envy. Yundong had already gone to the house on the right, where the second young master of the Xin family, Zhiyuan, was locked up. When the door was opened, there was a commotion inside. A few sharp screams instantly came. Chapter 484, Yundong beat someone. Yundong felt as if her eardrums were about to burst, and she stopped in her tracks. When the screams stopped, she looked inside. Compared to the 2 people in the eldest young master's room, this room was much livelier. There was not only second young master Zhiyuan, but also his wife, who was the daughter of the prefecture magistrate, and the concubine with the same name as hers. There were also the mother of the concubine, Zhiyuan's 2 maids, and 3 other concubines. Yundong had heard from Xue Rong that Zhiyuan was lecherous, so there were many beauties in the backyard. However, not many were taken in as concubines. After all, there was a wife there. Initially, there were more than a few concubines. However, there were endless open and hidden conflicts in the backyard. Once they were no longer liked by Zhiyuan, these concubines would not end well. Therefore, the remaining concubines were all successful people left behind after the house fights. However, the strange thing was that the 2 young masters of the Xin family had yet to have a child. It was understandable for the eldest young master. His wife had died early and his health was not good. However, not only did the second young master have a young and beautiful wife, but he also had concubines who were as beautiful as flowers. None of them had given birth to a child for him. It was probably because he had done too much evil. Yundong shook her head and sighed as she walked towards them. Zhiyuan narrowed his eyes and took a closer look at Yundong. Perhaps out of habit, his eyes lit up when he saw a young and beautiful girl walking over. He even swallowed his saliva unconsciously. Yundong was disgusted by his gaze. F*ck, he was already a prisoner, yet he still had a lustful heart. She stepped forward and punched him hard in the eye. Ah! Zhiyuan cried out in pain. The women beside him all looked at Yundong in shock. What are you doing? Who are you? Who are you to hit my husband? Do you know who I am? Judging from her tone, she should be Zhiyuan's wife. Yundong turned to look at her and smiled. What a show-off. Who are you? Oh, I know. Are you the daughter of the prefecture magistrate? Poor thing. The prefecture magistrate has been arrested too. The woman was stunned and her expression changed. Impossible. How could my father be captured? Otherwise, why hasn't he come to save you yet? It's because he can't even protect himself. This time, not only did the woman's expression turn ugly, but the others were also stunned. They had all been brought into this room and locked up by the soldiers who had suddenly appeared. They had vaguely heard that their crime included colluding with the enemy and betraying the country. The soldiers were to execute their entire families. All of them were trembling in fear. Their only hope was second young mistress' father, who was an official. Therefore, even though they were locked in such a small room, they were still very respectful to the second young madam. Their attitude was even a little flattering. They only hoped that when she was saved, she would take them away with her. After all, no one wanted to die. But now, they were told that even the prefecture magistrate couldn't protect himself, so who else could save them? Instantly, the other women present began to look at the young madam differently. They even began to blame each other. Yundong did not look at them. Her gaze landed on Zhiyuan again, and the corners of her lips curled up again. Zhiyuan felt his scalp go numb for some reason and could not help but move back. However, Yundong suddenly stepped forward, clenched her fists, took a deep breath, and hit him heavily. Ah! Stop, what are you doing? What right do you have to hit me? Chapter 485. Remember Dajiang? Yundong did not speak, but her punches became heavier and heavier. Not only did Zhiyuan scream in pain, even the others beside him were trembling in fear. The concubines did not dare to come forward, but Madame Tang shouted, "Stop! Who are you? Did my husband offend you? We were arrested, but there's still the imperial court to convict us. You're using lynching." Yundong felt an itch in her ears. Were these people used to being high and mighty masters? Were they so arrogant that they could not see their own situation clearly? No one made a sound. Only she was still in the limelight. Yundong finally stopped and narrowed her eyes to look in that direction. Madame Tang trembled under her cold gaze and had a bad feeling. Yundong lifted her leg and kicked Zhiyuan. Then, she left him and walked towards Madame Tang step by step. What are you doing? Madame Tang was a little afraid now. She sat on the ground and moved back. Yundong bent down and slapped her face. Madame Tang widened her eyes in shock. You, Yundong smiled and slapped her again. Ah, another slap. Yundong looked at her well-proportioned red and swollen face and smiled in satisfaction. How beautiful. You don't even have to put on rouge. Thank me properly. Madame Tang wanted to speak and curse, but her face was unbelievably swollen. The moment she opened her mouth, it hurt terribly. On the other side, there was a small fut sound. It was not loud. Unfortunately, Yundong's sharp ears still heard it. She raised her eyebrows and looked at the person who was laughing. She was about the same age as Yundong herself, and she was standing next to a familiar-looking woman. Oh, Yundong remembered now. Wasn't this woman the one she had seen in the kitchen? So the one next to her should be the concubine Yundong. She walked towards her. The concubine was a little afraid of her. When she saw that Yundong had noticed her, she immediately swallowed nervously. Before she could speak, Yundong slapped her. The concubine's eyes widened. Why did you hit me? I didn't say anything bad about you, and I didn't offend you. Yundong did not say anything. She slapped her a few more times. When she felt a little better, she finally stopped. The concubine did not dare to speak, and her mother was even more afraid of death. She did not even dare to look. The entire house was silent. No one dared to make a sound. Especially the concubines, they were trembling in fear. Master had been beaten up, young madam had been beaten up, and the concubine had also been beaten up. Was it their turn next? Just as they were feeling uneasy, Yundong stood up. Her cold gaze swept across the three of them. It was just a little pain. How could it compare to the pain of her father being thrown out of the Xin residence with blood all over his body and almost losing his life? How could it compare to the pain of his shoulder being burned and blistered? How could it compare to the feeling of helplessness when his fingers were broken and he could not even lift the bowl and chopsticks? It was just a few slaps. Not hurtful at all. Zhiyuan finally recovered. He looked at Yundong with hatred. Who exactly are you? Second young master is forgetful. Let me remind you. Yundong glanced at him. A month ago, did second young master beat up a man called Dajiang and throw him out of the Xin residence? Chapter 486. Am the farmer girl you're looking for? Zhiyuan frowned, unable to recall. Instead, it was Madame Tang and the concubine who had a deep impression of that competition. They immediately widened their eyes in shock. Who are you to him? The two of them spoke almost at the same time. Zhiyuan finally thought of the poor-looking man who was dressed in rags. Yundong squatted down. Am his daughter. The expressions of the three of them changed drastically. That person's daughter. They knew in their hearts how badly that person had been beaten up back then. After being thrown out of the Xin family, he would most likely not survive. So, his daughter was here to avenge him? Yundong seemed to know what they were thinking. Don't worry. My father isn't dead. He's alive and well. But I'm not sure if you're going to die soon. She stood up and looked down at the three of them. Actually, I was thinking that since my father was beaten up by the three of you, I wouldn't implicate the innocent. I would just settle the score with the three of you. Unfortunately, she smiled and suddenly looked at Zhiyuan. A bad premonition flashed across the Zhiyuan's heart, and his voice trembled slightly. Unfortunately what? It's a pity that you have designs on white sugar. Yundong raised her eyebrows. Didn't you want to go to the Xuanhe prefecture to find the farmer who made white sugar and force them to hand over the formula so that you can use it to earn money? Zhiyuan's pupils constricted. How did you know? Of course I know. After all, I'm the farmer you're looking for. How is it? Isn't it a surprise? Zhiyuan looked at her as if he had seen a ghost. His mind was in a mess. This person was the sugar producer. This person was the daughter of the man he had attacked back then. This person actually knew that he had designs on white sugar. He lowered his eyes and muttered, how could it be? How could it be? Yundong still felt that it was not enough. She said, actually, when I first came to the Wanqing prefecture, I really thought of cooperating with the Xin family. Unfortunately, Before I could find second young master, I encountered you trying to kill my father. My father had to recuperate for a month before he could walk. I have to settle this score with you no matter what, right? I didn't expect that when I was thinking of a way to deal with you, you still didn't think that you had done enough evil and wanted to find the person who made white sugar. Then I really can't let you off. Look, this is probably what they mean by karma, right? If you had treated my father better and been more polite back then, you might not have ended up like this. Zhiyuan's face turned pale. So, everything was because they had attacked that man? After Yundong finished speaking, her hand was still itchy and she wanted to hit them again. However, Mo Xulin finally pushed open the door and entered. That's enough. Anyway, they won't have a good ending. Yundong glanced at him before walking out of the door. To be honest, her hand still hurt a little, but it felt good to hit others with her hand. Before the door could close, the house was already in chaos. Hearing Mo Xulin's words, which seemed to be a death sentence, and hearing Yundong's words, which explained that the source of everything was actually the competition between the Tang and Zhiyu concubines, the other concubines who had been implicated could not help but pounce on them one by one and bite and kick them. Bitch, it's all your fault. If you want to fight, then fight. Why torture an outsider whose identity you didn't even know? We're dead because of you. Chapter 487, satisfied Yundong looked at him and shrugged. See? Even if I don't do anything, they'll be beaten half to death. Mo Xulin had a headache. He signaled for the people at the door to hold them back. Seriously, they could still fight so fiercely even with their hands and feet tied. What surprised him was actually the mother of the Zhiyu concubine. She was actually hitting the Zhiyu concubine most fiercely. She kicked and scolded, "You jinx, I'm really unlucky to have you. I'll die with you." As she spoke, she shouted towards the soldiers who rushed over, "Sir, I'm not from the Xin family. My daughter is only a concubine. I'm not even a proper relative of the Xin family. Let me go." No one paid attention to her. Mo Xulin had already closed the door. "All right, now that you've vented your anger, and everyone in the Xin family can't escape, you can rest assured, right?" Yundong took the small box from his hand and snorted. "Only sort of." With that, she led Xue Rong to the door. After leaving the door, she saw the Duan siblings talking. When they saw her, they were both stunned. After Yundong left, Miss Duan asked, "Who is that girl? Why can she enter?" Lord Mo only said that her surname is Zhiyu. "I don't know anything else. She shouldn't be from Wanqing Prefecture." Duan Qian said, "But Lord Mo treats her very well. I'm afraid we can't offend her. When we meet in the future, it's better to befriend her." "I see." Duan Wan nodded. The Duan family was in business, so their interests were naturally very important. They knew what was beneficial to them. Yundong carried the small box back to the inn. It was already noon. There were people everywhere in the lobby of the inn. As soon as they walked in, they heard about the prefecture magistrate and the Xin family. Everyone was discussing. Some of them were well informed and even said that there was a huge commotion in the capital. It was even more bloody than in Wanqing Prefecture. Yundong let it go and went upstairs with Xue Rong. When she reached the door, she saw Tong Xuedao welcoming her happily. She pushed Xue Rong to the side and whispered into Yundong's ear, "Miss, Master has been sitting in the room for a long time. He won't listen to me even if I persuade him to lie down." Yundong nodded. She pushed the door open and saw Dajiang sitting there with a frown. No one knew what he was thinking. She sat opposite him with a smile. "Father, have you eaten lunch?" When Dajiang saw her, he could finally ask the question that had been accumulating in his heart for a long time. "Yundong, there are rumors everywhere that the Xin residence has been confiscated. Is that true?" "Of course it is." "Then, this matter, Father wants to ask me if I'm involved in this matter." Dajiang hesitated for a moment before nodding. He felt that it was a little surreal. If his daughter got involved, the other party was the Xin family. No one in the entire Wanqing Prefecture dared to offend the Xin family. How could his daughter get involved with a 100-year-old family that even the Duan family had to retreat from? However, If his daughter was not involved, then during this period of time, Yundong had been too busy. Occasionally, when she mentioned the Xin family, she would look as if the other party was about to be finished. Yesterday, she even said that a storm was coming. All of this indicated that Yundong might know something. Not only did she know, but she had also done something. Dajiang thought of the angry and suppressed expression on Yundong's face when she found out that he had been beaten half to death by the second young master of the Xin family. So, you got involved? Chapter 488, Strange paper appears. Yes, I'm involved. The dust had settled, so she didn't have to hide it anymore. Dajiang's eyes widened. It was really. Then, how much did you get involved in? Seeing his conflicted expression, Yundong could not help but laugh. More or less. It's the most crucial step. Which step? Father should already know that Xue Rong came from the Xin family, right? Yundong told him about how Xue Rong's sister had accidentally found out about the evidence of the Xin family's crimes. She did not go into too much detail. Anyway, the charges against the Xin family would be out soon. His father would understand. On the other hand, Tong Xuedao finally understood why Xue Rong had been following Miss. It turned out that he had gone to do something big. She had misunderstood him. Thinking of this, Tong Xuedao looked at him apologetically. Seeing that he was still holding a heavy small box, she quickly went to take it to relieve his burden. Unexpectedly, Xue Rong turned his body and moved the box to the other side, not letting her touch it. Tong Xuedao, get lost. Dajiang was shocked when he heard that. It turned out that this was so complicated. Xue Rong had such a tragic history. The eldest young master of the Xin family was simply a beast. Dajiang admitted that he had seen many such crazy things on his way to escape, but when he heard this story, he was still so angry that his entire body trembled. It took him a while to calm down. Fortunately, evil had its retribution. He looked at Xue Rong and said, "Now that you've taken revenge, you can stay at our house in peace in the future. Our family is different from the Xin family. We won't do such a crazy thing." "Yes, my lord." When Dajiang looked at Yundong again, his face was filled with relief. As he watched, he couldn't help but laugh. Yundong's face darkened. "Father, what are you laughing at?" "Father just thinks that our Yundong is a very outstanding person. That's for sure." As Yundong spoke, she asked Xue Rong to place the small box on the table. She pushed it in front of Dajiang. In the face of his puzzled expression, Yundong smiled slyly. "This is the reward they gave me. Father, would you take a look?" Dajiang opened the box suspiciously. The next moment, he was stunned. He looked at the contents of the small box in disbelief. He felt as if his eyes were about to be blinded. Yundong took out a book from inside. "I heard that this is the only copy. Father, take a look." Dajiang suddenly came back to his senses. His gaze landed on the book, and his fingers couldn't help but tremble when he saw the words on it. He wiped the sweat from his palms excitedly and took the book. Then, he carefully opened it. After reading a few pages, he cherished it and closed it again. "This is worth 1,000 gold coins." His gaze fell on the small box again, and his expression gradually became solemn. "Yundong, keep these things well. They'll be your dowry in the future." Yundong laughed. "What dowry? I've picked it out for you." As she spoke, she began to take things out. "Look, this brush, this inkstone, do you like them? And this jade pendant, if I put it on your belt in the future, you will definitely look grand. And this fan, the words on it seem to have been written by some calligraphy expert in the past. And this? What is this?" Yundong looked at the unfamiliar piece of paper that suddenly appeared in the small box.